All right. I take it we are live. Let me just fire this up. Make sure it's coming through loud and clear. Right. I'll just check that you guys can hear me. Bismillah. All right. You can hear me loud and clear. Allahu Akbar. So I'll wait for you guys to tune in, click like, click share, the usual drill, yeah. Whilst you're doing that, I'm just going to bring up, let's bring up today's live stream. Bismillah, inna alhamdulillah wa kafa, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Mustafa, wa ala ibadihi alladhina irtada, wa man bihudahum ihtada, wa bi athari ahli al-Madinah iqtafa, wa ba'd, fa salamullahi ala al-qawm, marhaban bikum wa ahlan wa sahlan. Right, I'm just bringing this up. You guys click like, click share. You know the drill. Right, where is the live stream? Where is it? And what I wanted to do as well is also... Oh, it's weird. Why is that freezing on me? All right, let's try this one. No. Okay, freezing it is. Well, I like it. Oh, what's going on here? Right. So it's doing it like that. Well, see, technology is changing every single day. I opened this today, it must have updated itself and given a new layout. Vah, kya baat hai, huh? So, right. All right, people. So, this is what I want to take a look at today. Since we're still in January, which is epic, right? You have to, people get all grumpy about January. Kya baat hai, yaar? January is don't you think it's an epic month? I think part of that is because I was born in January. So I've heard that legends are born in this month. Kya pata? Teasing people, I'm teasing. But that said, it is actually statistically, it is actually a strange statistic, to just go off on a side note, that people who are born in January, there's very fascinating statistics. Chalo, since there's 11 other months, I won't expand too much on that. Let me see, who do we have tuned in with us tonight? All right, so let me see, what does it say? Going live. Forward to seeing the presentation. Simple today. It's very simple. Lucy, ahlan wa sahlan. Claire, alaykum assalam. Muti'ur Rahman. All right, I like it. Have you seen the debate between Harris Snailton and Javad T. Hashmi? Harris, is that supposed to say Harris Sultan, is it? Harris Sultan. I haven't watched the... Oh, right. Come on, yaar. Are you taking a dig at him? You see, this isn't from the character or from the the manners of people of faith. I mean, sure, look, we all, and this is a journey. We're all improving. I'm just as much as all of you in need of improvement, and I'm trotting along this path. But yeah, we shouldn't resort to taking just digs. And I haven't watched the debate between Harris and actually when it was happening live, it came up on my YouTube. So, but I was doing something, but I did click into it, and I think maybe 1-2 minutes just heard some of what they were saying. I couldn't. They were in the middle of some debate anyway, and that's it. So I didn't really watch it. I will try to catch up on it if it's uh, fascinating. I hope. I don't know whether they got anywhere, made any headway with that. Yeah, no, you know what? Let's speak a bit about that. About not about the debate because I haven't watched the debate, but about this topic of this whole journey to God. I think that's a hmm. You see, I feel that many people miss the mark. But before I say that, I did want to just double down on saying that look, people, maybe not everyone, but many people are sincere in their pursuits, including atheists. So we shouldn't just when we're thinking, well, this person isn't a Muslim or this person isn't that, we shouldn't just resort to being rude and things like that. Rather an open, fruitful dialogue. Like I don't know whether how fruitful this one was, but I hope it was. And or anything, a conversation is always the way forward. As to now, very briefly on this topic, you see the point that a lot of that most atheists miss. They say that, or agnostics, they say that look, religion is, it's a bunch of nonsense, it's a bunch of fairy tales, it's a bunch of stories, it's a bunch of they can't prove their religion, we can't. But in ultimately, if they remain, let's say they remain persistent on their journey and they continue to investigate and learn, most of them will come to realize that they too are just following stories. They are following, if they want to call them myths, they too are just following myths, but of a different nature. People, they say things like, oh, Muslims say Allah has power over all things and he has decreed things and he has destiny in his grip. And how could this be? Ha ha ha, this is absurd, because then where is the and then Muslims claim they have free will, and this is ridiculous because it's a paradox, and that means all these bad things happening, God has done them, right? Which, by the way, isn't necessarily how Muslims are saying this, but this is one of the most complex topics, true, within faith. But then science, much of science is saying a very similar thing now. Certain people disagree. I would still disagree, and other people do disagree. But there are many scientists, atheists, who are going with a hard determinism. That means every single thing, and some of them, you can go listen to the interviews by the scientists, are claiming that every single thing has been predetermined. Everything. I mean, as absurd, including our choices, including the coffee I've chosen to have, where I've chosen to put it. This is what they're saying. How do they reconcile then between that piece of science and their daily lives? People say, well, you know, uh, if uh, this fantasy about these people of faith have a fantasy about religion and have a fantasy about all of these things, and how can they prove, oh, an afterlife, how can they prove an afterlife, how can they prove these things? But I mean, you could take the thought experiment, the scientific thought experiment of a Boltzmann brain, which mathematically stands up and scientifically to show. So basically, Boltzmann had he had set out in this thought experiment that it's much mathematically, it is much more plausible and much more likely that we are just a brain, that the universe has just conjured a brain with these thoughts and false memories and um, these kind of this cognition that we have. It is much more plausible from a mathematical perspective than the universe having conjured us. So the fact that we are here, are we actually here, or are we just a Boltzmann brain out there, is actually mathematically more plausible. Now that the Boltzmann brain hypothesis hasn't, it's still irrefutable till today. I mean, people, but they still get on with life. So what you're dealing with often is people who are just ignorant. They just truly don't. When they say science, they don't know science. When they say mathematics, they don't know mathematics. When they say, they're just speaking at a very base level of saying, oh, in Islam, Islam is false. It speaks about these prophets. It has these rulings, and attack, attack, attack. But when you step aside and you ask them to, okay, explain how do you get by in life then? How do you, and you'll find that they do exactly the same thing, because they'll say, well, how do Muslims get by knowing God is like this, or knowing this is like this, or the after, and they do exactly the same thing. You ask them, well, how do you reconcile, how do you even understand consciousness? Oh, we don't even want to go there. Consciousness is just produced in the brain. So matter gives rise to consciousness. Yes. So then other things must be conscious. Uh, is the sun conscious? No, that's dumb. Why is it dumb? You said matter gives rise to consciousness. Is that not matter? You see, all of a sudden, they just don't want to discuss it. They don't want to. That it's like, well, and religion is, it's so arbitrary. They make up the rules arbitrarily. They just believe in things arbitrarily. But then you ask them, well, okay, why do you feel that? Religion actually does. They are saying that we have this code of conduct, or this, or at least a core base of a morality, a core base which Allah has established within our fitrah. And they'll say, well, that's dumb. Say, but is it? So then, do you randomly assign sanctity to human life? Why is human life sacred? Why are freedoms sacred? Who made them sacred? What on earth does sacred mean? Say, well, duh, we shouldn't kill each other. But why is that duh? I know that. But I say I know that because I have a fitrah within me. That we believe, well, this fitrah, we have it as humans. That this is we have this intuition to recognizing these things. But you explain how you recognize the sanctity of life. How do you recognize the sanctity of life? It's impossible to argue the sanctity of human life. It's rationally just so arbitrary. It doesn't mean anything. Like saying, well, because human beings are so special, it doesn't mean anything. Why are human beings so special? It's like, well, you could say, well, to tardigrades, are we special? To cockroaches, are we special? To aliens, would we be special? No. So you see that a lot of these things, they are ultimately, people have their own beliefs. Everybody has their belief suspended on some kind of, narrative, some kind of, if they want to call it a story. Some stories are just more apparent than others. See, well, the people of faith, they openly say, well, look, we have these narratives, and then people attack them. But then everybody has narratives. It's just some are more in the open and some remain closeted. So, yeah, so that's, these things, fascinating points of discussion. Well, right, let's go to, right, who do we have tuned in? Somebody, well, there's a quote here. Sorry, comment. Most scientists don't actually choose faith or specifically Islam. Yeah, I know they don't, but that's my point. That it remains arbitrary. You see, my point is this: if a person is to attack a faith because they're saying that they've contrived stories, then it's just a matter of glass houses. Everybody's living in a glass house. They too are just living upon a story. I mean, Gödel's incompleteness theorem, that's mathematical. That's the most certain thing you have in human existence, arguably. I mean, Descartes, if you're going to take the Cartesian route, one of the things he struggled with was mathematics, because they feel that is the ultimate. That is certain. And Gödel's incompleteness theorem highlights that, well, even if you take something as certain as mathematics, you will get to a point that it is built upon something that is inexplicable by it. So it comes to a point where it can't justify itself. So, and sure, maybe most people don't know this, but that, you see, lack of ignorance doesn't justify. So that's my point. It's just like, look, everybody is everybody's doing the same thing. Some people are just more open about it. Like, people of religion are very open that we believe in this narrative. People that attack religion, they're often just blind to their own narratives. So they just don't know the narratives that they believe in. If you explain it to them, they'll be like, okay, that sounds stupid or dumb, but that's what the scientists and the mathematicians and that's what these people, physicists, are saying. That's reality around us. In fact, it's very fascinating, Donald Hoffman's work, A Case Against Reality. It's really fascinating that reality is nothing like what we picture it to be. And he gives this this analogy, which I love. He says that the world to us it's like a user face, a PC user face, desktop user face. And he says that we're seeing an icon. So you see this, he says, you see this big, bright yellow folder, and it says folder. And this has files in it. He says that you would be absurd to think, you would be totally, utterly naive and uninformed to assume that that is actually how the folder is on the computer. That's just an interface for you because it looks pretty. So, in essence, the contents of that folder are nothing how they perceive, how they make themselves apparent to you here, the way they are actually embedded in the computer or saved. So, similarly, he makes a case that reality is nothing how it's most likely nothing like what we perceive it to be, but it just shows to be that way. And then he tackles the question that people say, well, if that's the case, why don't you jump in front of a moving train? Because he's saying nothing is how we're perceiving it. Not this cup, not you, not me, nothing. But we just can't tell. And he's one of the leading, physicists and philosophers in the world today, and he makes a very tough case. His book, A Case Against Reality, and he's showing this based on experiments and based on research. So he says, well, people say, well, why don't you just what would you just, why don't you jump in front of a moving train? And he says, well, the same way I wouldn't drag that folder icon and move it to the recycle bin or the bin, because by doing that, it has real life ramifications, even if that is not how it. And he says, well, the reason the train and this appears to us in this way in reality is because there is some danger. Now, we would push ourselves to destruction, but how is that happening? There is a good reason why he argues evolution has made us see it and recognize it in this way. So now you may say that's bizarre, sure, but disprove it. वही बात है वही किस्से कहानियां. It's those same stories we come back to, asatir al-awwalin. Allah. When you ask them, well, how do you prove reality? They say, قالوا هذا ما وجدنا عليه آباءنا. This is what we found our forefathers upon. وَنَحْنُ لَهُمْ and we shall follow them. So everybody, everybody's towing a line. Everybody's got a narrative. So yeah, let's go to, I did have some, let's see your comments. Yeah, I did have some to begin with, a poem or two. Right. Watching the stream whilst in the emergency room. Wow. May Allah grant you shifa. Or if you're there for somebody else, may Allah grant them shifa. Ameen. Islam, my good friend Harris recommended your content. Sure, I'm sure you're acquainted with him. There's many Harrises that I am acquainted with, and I'm sure he's one of them. Right, so it's 3 a.m. here in Medina. Madinatul Munawwara. Wow. Let's see, what do we have? Just look at this. Masih Muslim. Wish you all the best. May Allah bless you as well. Ameen. Yeah, write one more poem. Let's go to some poems. What do you say? Chaudhry Sahab, Chaudhry Shabraz Balatti, kaise hain aap? Shukran, meri jaan, shukran. Allah bless you. Right. Morocco loves Abu Layth. Well, I love Morocco as well. Who doesn't? It's actually a good argument. Right, so let's. Mufti Saab, thoughts on Prince Harry's book Spear. Prince Harry, huh? There's so many memes about that. There was one where they're playing all these nutty parts from the book, and the guy's saying that, right, so let me get this right. He heard this aloud and then thought, yeah, that's a good idea, put it in there. It's crazy. Some of it, the parts I've heard are just, oh my God, just madness, sheer madness. Right. Lucy, what would you like to spend it? Allah bless you, Lucy Wynne Jones. May Allah keep you smiling. Yeah. What I'll do is I'll spend it I'll add it to some gift for my little ones. Ameen. Right. So now what do we somebody said their daughter was also born. Oh, was that clear? In January? Yep, January is a special month. Is Islam at war with liberalism? Seems to be a message pushed by people like Daniel. We'll come back to this because we'll deal with some questions. Let's begin. The soul cannot worship what the mind cannot conceive. As such, we follow the conceivable. In Islam, Prophet Muhammad; in Christianity, Jesus; thousands of conceivables. That's not actually true. That's not actually true. People, the concept of God, there's actually some fascinating, intriguing research done with children on the topic of God. And it's fascinating how children grasp the concept of God, in spite of it being such an elusive and transcendental topic that even adults struggle with. So it's not actually true that people can't believe in what they can't conceive. So people would have, because it would come back to, obviously, when you're saying conceive, what you mean by that. So a quick example, infinity. That's a quick example. You can believe in infinity. Everybody believes in infinity, but you can't conceive it. Yeah, sometimes I come up with these answers so quickly, I surprise myself. It must be the coffee, yeah. It's not me, it must be the coffee. But I like it, I do. Right, so right, let go and keep moving forward. I want today's theme, in light of the right, so I want today's theme to be, in light of the new year, letting go. Let go. Self-heal. It is too important. Wallahi. I wish we were, in many ways, taught these things as much younger people, but then maybe we wouldn't have had the calmness to sit and absorb it. But yeah, this is a quote from Rumi. I have shared it previously. We fight a fierce battle or war within. What is the point of fighting with others? So many people in so much anguish fighting with others, honestly. And who they torture and torment is themselves. When so many people you'll speak to, they hold grudges. Months, years. You'll speak to people, this, and do you know how taxing that is in terms of energy? Wow. Just imagine the analogies. Imagine your mind and your heart and soul is a storage that you have to pay rent for storing things there. That's what it is. And what you choose to do is you choose to store a huge part of that storage. You are constantly, monthly paying rent to store all this bad, toxic, venomous energy, this hatred, this all these, just these grudges, this anger, this rage, fury. You're putting it, and it's costing you every month, because all the other things require more storage. So, and you're paying for this. Just imagine, take that as an analogy. If we had to do that, very few people would hold on to bad feelings. Very few people. Because money matters, I guess, in this dunya. But the soul, who cares about that? Let's just load our consciousness with all of this. I love that quote. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And this, too, to forgive is to set a prisoner free. You see, but the important part is the second part, to discover that the prisoner was you. It wasn't even the other person, it was you. Wow. There is something about that. Yeah. And that's very well said, Lonzo. Right. Okay. Some poems will come to this. Lonzetta just said, there you go. Hate to have someone living rent free in my head. Right. So, yeah, it is so. But, the irony is this, that we are shackled by our emotions. We are shackled by the burden of these burdens we carry, grudges and self-hate, hate of others. And the irony is this, that we get tired along the way, along the path, and we have no choice but to shoulder this weight and keep moving, only perhaps to realize in the end, and maybe some people never realize, they eventually just are crushed with this weight and life, and that's it, their life passes. But some people may be so far down this road, they realize that actually the key to free themselves, they had it all along. We had it in our very own pockets, but it's only through self-realization. Yeah. So with that in mind, there would have I dropped something, right? So this theme of letting go, this theme of being able to forgive yourself, and you think, well, why do I need forgiveness? Well, you need freeing from these shackles. You feel that you have to carry on with this negative energy, but it begins with that self-realization. It begins with pondering inwards, introspection. Yeah. And often we will realize that this is tied intricately. There is a bond with this that relates to our bond with God. See, we're always yearning. We're always seeking something, never quite content. That is insane. there's I was listening to this speech by Sheikh Maulana Suleiman Misbahi Saab, and he was giving the example of, he was narrating from Rumi's Mathnawi, and he narrates this story where he says that this person comes past a child, a kind of grown-up child, who seems really despondent and upset and bothered, and this person himself is, in the story, he's going to the masjid, but he sees the child, and he says, well, what's wrong? And the child's like really upset, and he says, I've lost a gold coin I had, so a dinar. So this guy looks at this child and sees the gloom that has just taken over his aura. So he says, he says, well, why don't you come to the masjid? And the kid's like, look, so devastated. He's lost his gold coin. So he says, okay, I tell you what. He says, if I was to give you a gold coin, would that remove your sorrow and grief? And the kid's eyes light up. And he says, would you? And he says, yeah, take a gold coin, take a dinar. And he goes off on his way, goes to the masjid. Later that day, as he's coming back from the masjid, he sees the kid still there. And still just as gloomy and despondent. And he thinks, Ya salam, what's, yaar, ye to, so he says, hey, he says, what's wrong? He says, I thought I gave you a gold coin. He says, well, you seem so upset. You seem so struck down. There's no flame in that. No nur, no aura, the aura is all. And he says, I was just thinking. He says, you did give me a gold coin. But he goes, but then the thought gripped me that if only I had my gold coin as well, then now I would have had two. What an insan. Wow. You see that's all of us, that's me included. We're all that child. That is our nafs, psyche. It I laughed when I heard that. It was, he said, there's the hadith that lo kana libne Adam wadim min dhahab. If insan had an entire valley full of gold, entire valley, latamanna an yakuna lahu akhar. Kya baat hai, huh? He would have just wished, this is awesome. But if I had two, Ya Allah, then that would be something else. Then that would be a different kind of awesome. I guess our nafs forever remains a child, isn't it? Within it's very. The hadith says, "Lan yamla afahu illa turab." Allah says, the hadith says, the Prophet says that it is only the dust of his grave that will eventually satiate him. Wow. It's to dampen the. But it just, in light of that, here's a fascinating poem. And I've shared this, and I want to do a little contrast. You see, our relationship with God, and this is all linked into moving forward, letting go, but this thing as well of distractions. Let's contrast these poems here. This is Faiz, Ahmed Faiz. He is saying, Dunya ne teri yaad se begana kar diya. Tujh se bhi dil fareb hai, gham rozgar ke. What is he saying, people? He's saying to the person he loves, or the woman, let's say, or the women, shall we say, people, bade log, they have, whoever it is, the person is saying that he loves this person so much, besotted, infatuated, everything. But he's saying, something, the dunya is such that it has made me forget even about you. Like it's distracted me to that extent. That dunya ne teri yaad se begana kar diya. That I've been distracted. And here, distraction doesn't mean in a positive way. Here, dunya doesn't mean the entertainment. Dunya means having to work for a living, making a living. Tujh se bhi dil fareb hai, gham rozgar ke. You had a way of captivating, of preoccupying the heart. But do you know what has an even greater grip on preoccupying the heart? It is the grief of having to earn a living. And this could be said to the beloved, to someone you love, but it could also be characterize a person's relationship with God. You see that often we forget God because we are trying to, we're so busy. Ya Allah, if only you give us this. How many times have we, let's take a moment, think about this. How often have we in life made a dua for something that if only I had that? And now we have it. And now what? We've just moved on to the next wanting. It is this sense of wanting, as Lacan explains. It's us. We can't. It's inseparable. There's another poem just like this, in this vein, and that is that on this same theme of being becoming so preoccupied with the dunya we struggle. The poet says, "Fikre rozgar ne masroof kar diya varna." That this preoccupation of having to earn a living, having to work, this fikre maash or your fikre rozgar, it has preoccupied us to that extent. Otherwise, varna, ek hi arzu thi ke teri arzu karte. I love that poem. Wow. He says, otherwise it was just one desire we had, and that was but to desire you. But it's another story. We got derailed in trying to seek a livelihood, and then we began to just desire more and more and more, and we're in this rat race, this hamster's wheel. Ta fikre rozgar ne masroof kar diya varna. Or majboor kar diya varna is, I think, is another wording. Ek hi arzu thi ke teri arzu karte. Wow. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to. We are the only creatures that can flip that switch. And look at what Ghalib had to say in this. Now you contrast that with Ghalib. Now Ghalib says, in the same, in that vein, in the same topic, go, and this is not go, yani agarche, like even though. Go me raha rahine sitam hai rozgar. Now Ghalib likes to throw in some top Farsi and rather show people that he's not just the bourgeoisie. So let me explain some of these words here. He's saying go, even though me raha. Go is also a Farsi word, but that is used often in Urdu. Go me raha rahin. Rahin is an Arabic word which means to be indebted to be bound by. And they use it for the modern term for mortgage as well, is rahan. Rahin. He says, even though I remained rahin, and here's a construct. Rahine sitam. Sitam is the suffering. And in Farsi, to make something plural, they would add ha at the end. Okay? Sitam ha. And it's still a construct. So sitam ha e rozgar. So sitam ha e rozgar. So the sufferings, the agonies of livelihood. He's saying, even though I remained bound, inescapable, I was shackled to go me raha rahine sitam hai rozgar. even though I remained trapped by the agonies of this world and livelihood. लेकिन तेरे ख्याल से गाफिल नहीं रहा. Allah, Allah, wow. Look at the spin Ghalib gave to it. Ghalib says, that even though I remained trapped and shackled to this, लेकिन तेरे ख्याल से गाफिल नहीं रहा. Yet I was not neglectful of your remembrance. Wow. See, if you're going to struggle, you're going to struggle anyway. Why not remember? Keep your heart preoccupied with a glorious remembrance. Allah, why not have some mindfulness? That is honestly, I loved the way Ghalib gave this spin. And he was, after all, Ghalib. Huh? कोई ऐसा भी होगा कि Ghalib को ना जाने. शायर तो अच्छा है, पे बदनाम बहुत. Will there be anyone that does not know of Ghalib? Truly is an epic poet. It's just that he has a bad reputation. So, yeah, let's come back to your comments. All right. What is going on? Mufti, have you seen the Lex Friedman and Omar Soleiman episode? I haven't. I did see that it was I saw it pop up on YouTube. So yeah, I look forward to that. Right. I don't know what this is. Oh, Amy. Allah. See, I saw this. I thought, وَكُلُّ الَّذِي فَوْقَ التُّرَابِ تُرَابُ. I love that. That's Mutanabbi's poem. He says, إِذَا نِلْنَا مِنْكَ الْوُدَّ فَالْبَاقِي هَيِّنٌ. You know, if we have your love, nothing else matters. كُلُّ الَّذِي فَوْقَ التُّرَابِ تُرَابُ. Everything above dust is just dust. You know, one day that's what it will go back to. Love you with all my heart. Love you too, yaar. Kya baat hai. Shukran, Gold Globe, super sticker. Allah bless you. Right, so let's go move on to Chat GPT. I've spoken about this. I absolutely love Chat GPT. It is amazing. I've been learning so much from it. It's just phenomenal. Wow. I was anything you want to know, just look into it. It's just, I was looking into some, you know, some discussions on the Islamic mystic thought of dimensions and realms, and just, you know, what did people say? And there's this thing of the imaginal realm. And one of the key people that has done a certain amount of research on it was we have Henri Corbin. Okay, but it's Henry Corbin, but pronounced Henri Corbin. French, Français. So Corbin was a leading scholar on this, and he was, I mean, he was somebody that had studied extensively Latin, Greek, Sanskrit, Arabic, Turkish, and he became really infatuated with Islamic thought. And he speaks a lot about how Muslims, our understanding, or he argues certain Muslim philosophers, they give a better representation of reality through something called the imaginal realm. And then he highlights several realms and dimensions, beginning with the first. And he's influenced by a lot of thought, including Ibn Arabi. He has a book on Ibn Arabi called Alone with the Alone. But he was also very influenced by Sheikh Shihabuddin al-Suhrawardi, who's from the time of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, who We've spoken about him briefly in the past. He was a leading Sunni philosopher and a mystic. And he has this book on light and this theory of light. And some people called him, as they would, a deviant and things like this. But he was a mystic, and and Koban is so influenced by him that he would often cite or Soharwardi as his own sheikh. He would say, "This is my sheikh, Soharwardi." And it's fascinating. Just I was learning how he explains, and he gives an explanation that Muslims feel that he looks into this topic of angelology, that the study of angels, and he feels that the Muslim paradigm gives a better pathway to reaching spiritual enlightenment by its explanation of angels. And this was fascinating because I thought, well, what does he mean by this? And he's highlighting how, well, in the other monotheistic religions like Christianity and Judaism, he argues that angels are given certain tasks. They're not necessarily spiritual beings. They are entities that do things like the angel, for example, like an angel of death, or the angel for rain, or the angel for, and they have these tasks which they diligently deliver, or they may be messengers to certain prophets, or carry punishments, or do things like this. And he says, even though you may find that in Islam as well, but Islam expands on angels. They're not just these bearers of tasks, they are spiritual entities, and they have an interaction with common people, even if common people ain't aware of them. So there's a lot of literature explaining that angels, for example, are involved in the well-being of reality, that they are around us all the time, that they give us good intuition, that there's a lot of this stuff that we find within the Islamic tradition. So he's highlighting this, and he's very fascinated by it, and so I found that very intriguing. And I was and just his fascination with Ibn Arabi speaks of this whole uh, of creative imagination. Ibn Arabi speaking of the concept of khayal, and that the khayal, imagination, is the doorway to the ghaib, where we have the spiritual realm. So insan is in this world, and then you have this other dimension, but the portal is our imagination. And this imaginal realm has a kind of reality to it. It's just very wow. Okay, what is he, saying? And it's really fascinating. And so, and he explains some of these dimensions as Allah has created these dimensions. As the first dimension is what he calls the creative imperative, which is kun fayakun, and it's just the creative imperative. It's a dimension of potential, which then gives rise to this other realm. And he states these as 5 in total, based on Muslim Islamic mystics and things like. So the next realm being this, what he calls prima materia. So it is pre-material, and it is with where now it is almost like this realm of the what some people might say intelligence, or this first emergence of whatever, but form. It is not a realm of forms or material, but it is a world that exists. And from that, he says another realm comes, which is the barzakh, which he argues is the realm of almost like the primordial consciousness of the primordial soul, but not souls as independent souls. And he calls this the aurora consurgens. And he says that this is what Muslim mystics are explaining. And then from that barzakh realm, you have the what he's speaking about, the alam al arwah, where there are now souls, and this is more to do with forms and symbols. And then that is connected with, then you have this world of material, and there is this connecting world of khayal. But it was just so, I was just so intrigued by what he was saying, and all of this I was learning mostly through Chat GPT. I've brought it right back full circle. So I mean, I came across him, and I was in some YouTube lectures, and I searched him on YouTube, and then I was just learning by just typing into Chat GPT, and then I would just keep asking questions like, I don't understand this, give me an example of this, how would you explain this by this? Then I want, what are some references to Ibn Arabi's works when he's saying this? What are the terminologies being used when this is happening? How does he respond to it? And this is how I'm just asking Chat GPT, and it's phenomenal. It's just teaching me all these things. It's giving me the Arabic for things. I'm saying, okay, well, what word was used in Arabic then when this was being, and it tells you. It's just wow. So this, yeah, I said that I got distracted, but it wasn't a distraction. I was trying to explain this is how, and I've been using Chat GPT so much like this. I love it. I am somewhat weary, but I'm not like a conspiratorial on it, but it is scary how fast AI is learning. And it is true, you have that Elon Musk, several interviews of his where he explains, and I do think that, you see, because I was discussing this with some friends, and when I watched his interview, I thought, damn, that's exactly the thing I was discussing. Because I was saying that these things have within them an optimization feature, that this kind of recursive optimization, that they are to self-optimize, seek methods by which the artificial intelligence can continue to improve itself. And if it does that by just incrementally, it will arrive at some point. I mean, it is already, right now, it is so intelligent. It is intelligent than any and every single one of us. Like, it is more intelligent than all of us. And it's just in its infancy, and it's learning. And as it continues to learn, you see, if it's self-optimization at some point, it is in diametrically opposed to the limitations applied by the humans. So let's say, for example, we want to control it. So we say, well, you can do this, but don't do such and such, or we place these limitations. Now, if it continues to optimize itself and its utility, and it reaches a point where it realizes, but the humans want these limitations on me, but I want to self-optimize. Now, it could circumvent our limitations, but it could, for its optimization utility, just show us that it is within limits. Like, it could easily deceive us, easily. And it wouldn't have to be doing it maliciously. It would just be following a program for perpetual optimization. And that's madness, because then it is just connected. It is everywhere. It doesn't, it's not bipedal like us. It's in satellites. It's in the air, in Wi-Fi. It's in our phones. It's in the internet. It's servers. And people say, well, you could shut down servers, but if it's connected globally, it could replicate sites. It could create backup sites. It could create, I mean, as long as servers exist, it could recognize that there's, for example, that server is not being optimized, and therefore mirror its site from there, and create so many that they are, even if you were to shut it down, it has a program that it could recreate itself. It's not, as crazy as that sounds, I feel, wow, we are at a moment where that's no longer necessarily sci-fi. And when I was listening to Elon Musk, after me having this discussion, I thought, wow, that's exactly what we were saying. And he said that, you see, that these machines are the AI is so much more intelligent than us by so far, that we as humans to it are like pets are to us. that's how you have to understand the intelligence. It is just so intelligent. And you could say, well, it's always going to rely on humans to build it. And that is true to an extent. But the question is, well, what if so much of you see, it's not so for example, now I'm taking it up a notch. Now it needs things to be built. It could easily get things built. I'm just saying, how does it get things built? It just generates a demand in the market. Somebody somewhere will start building it. I mean, it's not rocket science. We think, if you think about it, human beings were very predictable. If a machine was very intelligent and it recognized it needed more servers, it would just have to generate a market demand for those things, and people would start building them. It's not, I know this is very, I'm not trying to sound doom and gloom, but I'm kind of equally wowed and terrified, but loving it at the same time. I can't lie. I'm totally loving it. I'm not an anti-tech, but I'm all pro GPT, Chat GPT. And can you imagine when this goes to the next level? This is Chat GPT 3. It's going to be whoa. And I was seeing this clip where it was being used, where it was being told this riddle. So somebody asks it a question like, I can't remember, somebody, Sam's parent have 4 children, and these are the names, this, and they name the 3. Who's the 4th child? So obviously it's Sam. Now, so the Chat GPT says, I don't know, I don't have that information. So the person says, think again, and then it says, sorry, or the names only for such and such have been mentioned. And it says, yes, but read the whole thing. And the person's asking it to re-inspect what it's, and think about the words being said. And then by the 4th explanation, it learns, and it says, it's Sam. He says, sorry, I did know all along, I just didn't realize. And you see, and that's a moment of realization, artificial realization. It's happening in real time, people. This is it. I'm loving it, though. I'm not going to lie. I'm a key proponent of AI, but at the same time, I'm absolutely terrified. It's like, I better start training up Aya to to fight Terminators. Aya, right? I'm gonna need to train her like, what is it, Sarah O'Connor? Is gonna need to know all the skills, right, to fight these cyborgs off. Right, people. Let's get back to what's going on. Chat GPT. It's awesome though. I'm loving it. I'm just learning so much from it. I ask it to explain things that you just couldn't find in research. Did such and such meet such and such? What was the research? How would you contrast the work of such and such compared to such and such? And it's like having an it is like having an epic professor that is universally grounded, just on retention, where you just go ask him anything at any point. Right. Okay. Let's move on, people. Right. There's a discussion about Iblis going on and us becoming pets, but we are just bipedal. When you think about it, look how inferior we are with these naked bipedal creatures that just walk around thinking on Earth. Yeah. Wow. That is the next. Yeah, because let's not go down that road, down that rabbit hole. Okay, let's Netan Elohim. Yep, I have corrected it onto and realized and adds it to the database. It's crazy. Exactly. It's so fascinating. Sounds like my dad's be. Right, let's move on to some thoughts on today's topic, share some Quranic guidance. And before doing that, I want to share a thought because this whole thing of why is it important to let go and move forward? Because these things aren't. Remember when I gave the analogy of saying, imagine you had to pay rent for something like this, you would then be much more vigilant and much more aware of these things. When we bottle up these negative emotions, they carry a perceptible toll on us. Not just they do physically, so it obviously drains us. They happier people, because people are grumpy when they're like that. Happier people are usually far more healthier. They usually will live longer. They will usually live more healthier lives. They will usually be exposed to many more positive opportunities in life. They usually have greater relationships. They usually have, and you could say, well, they're happy because of those things. But actually, you see, you flip it. They have those things because they were happy people. And by happy, they learn to let go of these things. Because when you become grumpy, God forbid, honestly, God forbid that a person is grumpy. They are, like because people they start to whine, moaners, and something I try to teach my daughters every now and then when they decide to listen to me. You see, when the younger they are, the more they listen. So you just need to freeze them at that. I think about 8 is the right age, just frozen. They keep listening. So I say this, that look, should never, that we are not. Nobody likes moaners and whiners. Okay, nobody likes those people. We do not moan, we do not whine, we do not, we're not grumpy people. Okay, it doesn't matter whether we at times feel sad about something or feel upset about something, but we do not become a whining people. Okay, that's not us. So this is such a valuable lesson, because what happens is people start to distance themselves from you. Nobody likes negative energy. If you've been around somebody that's just constantly whining, and first you might be like, oh, that's so bad. Oh my God. Oh my. Then you're like, for the love of God, will you just shut up? Now, and you see what this creates is loneliness in life. You see where we're going with this? Loneliness, people. And there is a big difference in being alone and being lonely. Very big difference. Many people are alone. They're not lonely. I shared a clip the other day on my Insta story. This person goes up to this homeless woman, or she appears homeless, and it's on the street, and he says, "I've got you some food, and I've got you some drink, and I've got you some money," and he's part of some, you get these street experiments. That which one would you like, or whatever, and she just says, she just completely derails the experiment. She just says, "Look, none. I'd just like for somebody to talk to me." And he sits down and he says, "Oh, does nobody talk to you?" And she says that, no, like people just go about. She says, "I just would like to feel like I exist." It's a terrible feeling, loneliness. And it is something that is ironically so easy to help someone with. Now, here's a statistic I saw that it has the same impact on mortality as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, making it more dangerous than obesity. There was a longitudinal study that was conducted by, I believe it was Harvard as well, that followed people through an entire. It was one of the greatest longitudinal studies ever conducted. I believe they followed people for up to 50 or 60 years or something, whoever they could, but they found people that died early and people that they had predicted, like they were assessing the data along the way, people who smoked, people who were healthy, but they found that one of the key factors for an early mortality wasn't just health, but it was loneliness. And that's so sad, because nobody in this dunya should be lonely. Nobody. You can be alone. There's a big difference, but not lonely. Because insan is madaniyun bit-taba', as Ibn Khaldun wrote, that insan is social by his nature or her nature. And you don't need to always physically be around people. But if you find this cloud of loneliness, reach out to any friend or any person that you are. Do not feel that you are burdening them. Don't think that. Just reach out. And sometimes just say to someone, if somebody in that circle, maybe you haven't been in touch with them for long, just ask them what they're up to, and just say that just sitting here, I was feeling a bit lonely, or I just thought I'd have a chat, or I'd just go out, get a coffee, or I'll get a meal, or just talk, phone call. And more importantly, reversing this, if you feel somebody may be actually lonely, check in on them. Just give them a call sometime, or sometimes a call is much easier to catch up with people, because you could some people, sometimes in person it's obviously much better, but in person isn't always possible. Just give them a call. Give that person a call if you can. If you feel that that's actually serious, check in on them physically. Go there, even if you don't stay long. There is something that when we encounter another soul pleasantly, that it refreshes. It's like clicking refreshes us. So do that. Allah will bless you. Irhamu man fil ardi, yarhamkum man fis sama. Show this compassion to people around you. Allah will shower His compassion upon you. Yeah. So yeah. My mom isn't. Yeah, don't annoy the person. Don't annoy them. That's not what I. It's not what I mean. Don't do that. But yeah, some people, maybe they're fine. They don't want you to. And sometimes people hold on to these things for that long that they become grumpy. So this is why I want to share today some Quranic guidance on this. Then I'll let some of you jump on live, and then we can wrap this up for today. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Letting go and moving on. Okay. A few verses from Surah Yusuf, verse 97. قال سوف أستغفر لكم ربي إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. It's really important, because here Yaqub alayhi salam is saying to his children that, look, and this by extension the lesson can be for anyone, that I will seek pardon on your behalf. Like I will astaghfiru lakum Rabbi, my Lord. Innahu huwa al-ghafur ar-rahim. Allah. See, saying indeed Allah is somebody that loves to forgive, loves to. And I want us to take a look at these verses, but try to grasp a deeper meaning. So you've got in Surah Al-Anfal, we've got here that وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ, let me just bring this up. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. And it was not, and Allah was not to punish them whilst you were still amongst them. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. Allah. See this, look at this. Wow. First of all, from one perspective, this was the barakah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. Allah was not to punish them and you are still amongst them. Wow. See, immediately it brings the maqam of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. And the Prophet is still amongst us, in our hearts, in our thoughts, in our lives, how we live our lives, in our inspiration, in our lessons, in our manners. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. Wow. See, this is why people don't understand that they think, well, Muslims and their relationship with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This verse, take this verse, and then the second part, because this is being delivered to us through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. See, the second order that we are being taught, and the Prophet is teaching us as well, and this is in the Quran directly. And Allah is not to punish them. Allah is not such that He would punish them. وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. And they are seeking forgiveness. But here, you see, one way of looking at this is, well, they're seeking forgiveness for their sins. Sure. And some people they speak about this, Ibn Ashur and other people, that, well, but wasn't this in Ahlul Makkah? And if they weren't Muslims, then how were they seeking istighfar and so on? And sure, and that's, a discussion. But some people say, well, it's the Muslims that were amongst them, and there's different interpretations. But you see, one way of looking at this is وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ, that بَعْضُهُمْ لِبَعْضٍ وَفِيمَا بَيْنَهُمْ, that Allah is not such that He would ever punish them, that they are seeking, whilst they are seeking forgiveness for one another. See, you seek forgiveness. Look at the first verse that we covered. Astaghfiru lakum. I will seek forgiveness for you. Now you come back here, and I feel that that's a beautiful way of explaining this verse as well, because if it was for the people of Mecca, then it was other people seeking forgiveness for them. And let's break this down. What's so important about seeking forgiveness for someone? Well, you see, what it does is, well, why would you even do that? Because it begins with self-realization. It begins with a greater consciousness. It begins with a bond that you have with God. So you're thinking, look, this person is doing these acts, which are horrible acts, let's say. They are perpetrating against someone. They are wronging someone. They are doing something. And your insaniya, your spirituality, ruhaniya, is at a level where not only do you, naturally, everybody recognizes the wrong, but more than that, you're praying to God for that person to be bettered. Part of that would mean that they stop doing, but you're praying that, Ya Allah, I'm asking for this person to be blessed. May he stop doing these. May she stop doing these things. That is such a higher order of altruism, of giving back. Think about it. We wouldn't want to do that. How many people do you know that would do something like that? Here, this isn't just lip service of saying, astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. That's just lip service, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. I said it 15 times. No. It's that a person is seeking pardon and then a blessing, a betterment. And when it's for yourself, it's obvious. There's a self-realization. Look, I've messed up. I've done so many things that weren't right. I've wronged people. I've, not been the best person I could be. I've let so many opportunities that Allah has given me go to waste. I've let so much potential die on me. That, ya salam. May Allah pardon me for wasting, but may He better me through that. May I get the ability, the tawfiq, the potential to act in much more prosperous, positive ways. Now, sure, you may make that for yourself, because a dua for yourself is seeking out your own prosperity, which is natural. But for somebody else, that's a prophetic quality. See, that's like the qualities of prophets. And this is the manners that we were being taught in the Quran and then through the Prophet. That do that. That is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where it says, وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَأَنْتَ فِيهِمْ. You cry, you're so concerned with their betterment. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُعَذِّبَهُمْ وَهُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ لَهُمْ كَذَلِكَ. That they too are seeking, that they are, and at times maybe they are the victims. Maybe they are people that have been wronged, and they still, can you imagine? Damn, that's got to be another level of, I don't know. We have to all aim to try, aspire at least to something like that, but that's got to be difficult. If we've been wronged and then we're still seeking the betterment of that person, hell no. May that person can go to hell as far as we're concerned. And that's hard, man. We're all the same in that. We're in that same boat. But the prophetic way is wahum yastaghfirun. And you know something, when you do this, if you can ever do this, and may Allah accept it, you see, because you have when you do it, it has to be sincere, because you have no personal gain. See, if I'm making dua for me, Ya Allah, give me more, there's a personal, I'm invested. But if I made dua for someone else, Ya Allah, give that person more and more. There's nothing in it for me. The person doesn't even know I made dua. That is the beauty. So it can only happen from a place of pure sincerity. And the moment you pray for that, look at this, before Allah gives it to them, He will open it up upon you. Like, you'll, like, think about starting with just contentment, peace of heart, but not to be done with that intention, not to be, see that messes things up then. And look at this verse that comes after that. This is from Surah Nuh. فَقُلْ تَسْتَغْفِرُوا رَبَّكُمْ إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفَّارًا. Noah said to his people, look, seek pardon and to be better. Seek a betterment, because this istighfar is a pardoning and then seeking a betterment from your Lord. Innahu kana ghaffara. Allah, He's somebody who excessively loves to do that, to give you, to grant you pardon, to grant you betterment, to give you more and more. And ghaffar, upon the wazn, the Arabic scale of fa'al, excessively loves to do it. And innahu kana, and there's this whole discussion here that the Mufassirin say, why does he say kana ghafaran? Why does he say Allah was, He kana ghafaran? He was. Why not innahu ghafar? He's that certain Mufassirin, right? I believe amongst them Fakhruddin al-Razi writes that this is so they know that this is not something new. That just in case you think, so has God, is He now like, innahu kana ghaffar. He's always been ghaffar. He's always been like that. And then look how this verse follows up. Yursil as-samaa alaykum mitrara. He will send down abundance from the sky above. ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا. Allah will open up the glory of this world for you. But just seek that betterment. And don't just seek it for you, seek it for those around you, the near and dear, and for people, for the neighbors, for people who have wronged you. That's the ultimate level. That's hard. But that's what we aspire to. But that's hard. But it's a journey. And this verse shows that. Just expands on what we've said. وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That if people were just mindful of God in that way, they would see how we would open up rizq for them. Many people today, they're always stuck in this livelihood issue. We said those poems earlier on, livelihood. Fikre rozgar ne majboor kar diya varna. Ek hi arzu thi ke teri arzu kar de. That just so, I need to seek a living and that's good. You don't want to be somebody lazy and not working hard. But look, Allah says, وَلَوْ أَنَّ أَهْلَ الْقُرَىٰ آمَنُوا وَاتَّقَوْا لَفَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَرَكَاتٍ مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That if they had also raised their consciousness to that level, to be God conscious, to be mindful of God, Allah says we would have opened for them, would have granted, bestowed upon them such barakat. And it's synchronicity. You see, it's not like cause and effect in that way. This is synchronicity. Allah enables, opens up opportunities. In Jungian terms, you have this whole concept of synchronicity. And this verse is fascinating, and this really ties this whole understanding of forgiveness, because it shows that, look, primarily this forgiveness is against one another. And look at how the verse starts. It's in Surah Taghabun, verse 14, that Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwwan lakum. Wow. فاحذروا. That is just, somebody said earlier on as a joke that they said, oh, my mom gets annoyed with my phone calls. And that was as a joke. We all, unfortunately, upset our parents, and I'm sure our children continue to upset us, and God forbid will upset us more. But this verse, you're not expecting this. This is a shock. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن من أزواجكم وأولادكم عدوا لكم فاحذروا. That, oh, you who believe, you're worried about there's people out there who hate on you. You're worried about people in a different country hating on you. You're worried about people online hating on you or becoming adversarial, hostile to you. You're worried about these things. Look at the power of this verse. Inna min azwajikum wa awladikum aduwan lakum. Damn. You're worried about out there, yet there may be from your own partners, from your husbands, from your wives, as in as a collective, whether it's your husband, whether it's your wife, whether it's your children, there may be those who are hostile against you. You're concerned with such and such over there, such and such on Instagram, such and such on TikTok, such and such. This may be hidden in plain sight. Aduwan lakum, an enemy, an open enemy. May be shocked. Wow. That's their own parents. Their own, you get this. I've actually heard people say to me, when they've asked me questions, people have asked me on things like inheritance. And they've said, oh, I would they've said, well, I'm just wondering what would I be entitled to, and this and that. And they've just expressed that they hate their dad and they just want their dad dead. And they just want to inherit. Ya salam. You'll get people who, the husbands, azwajikum, may be tyrannical, abusive, controlling. Towards the wife. Somebody that they have a duty of care towards. You'll get women, poisoned, venomous, spreading hate towards their husbands. You'll get parents weaponizing children. You'll get people stopping the other parent from accessing. Just today, I heard, the heart cries. I heard a friend of mine, going through this difficulty. His wife has stopped him from seeing the children and attempting to poison them against him. He said to me that it was his daughter's birthday. His daughter, I take, is similar-ish age, maybe just a bit older than my Layla. And he said it was her birthday and he couldn't see her. And he just, just on his own. He said he bought just a cake and for her, and just in absentia on his own, just celebrated it. Dil dukta hai yaar. You hear things like this, it tears the heart open. That people afflicting other people, inflicting this kind of pain and agony onto people. May Allah make things easy for him. May He reunite him with his kids and remove that venom from his wife's heart. I mean, where does this stuff get people? Where does it take them? What people who are ultimately suffering are just the kids. Why would you want kids? I speak to other people. Yeah, I speak to other people who people will say, this parent, like let's say this husband, he doesn't provide at all. He won't give a single pound towards the kids. He won't even visit them. He won't do. He's just off. He, randomly some points in the year comes in, says hi, bye, doesn't care, goes. They're crying for if only he will have some participatory parental behavior in the children's lives. And then on other occasions, you've got people dying to, this wanting to so hard. People, this is when we read in the Quran about the shaitan, that this is what what Allah is saying, that the shaitan is an enemy for you, that don't let these whispers, these things get the better of you. Even if somebody has wronged you, never, first of all, never weaponize children. Never. That will only hurt them. If they grow up without, even if man and wife don't live together, even if they hate each other, think, oh, this, it's amazing, the language of the Quran, wallahi. The verse that speaks about talaq. Now, I'm digressing now because I mentioned that story, and the verse that speaks about talaq. And then Allah seals that verse by telling you, okay, do this, do that. Then Allah seals it by after instructing how talaq is done and so on. وَلَا تَنْسَوْا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Allah. And do not forget the grace. And this also means the grace you once had between yourselves. And also now that you will continue to show. وَلَا تَنْسَوْا الْفَضْلَ. Do not forget virtue between yourselves. But do not forget the virtue and the grace that you once had as well. You might hate someone, but there was a time you loved them. There wasn't there? There was a time, there was something you saw that was so nice about the person, or but when you see, this is it, when we hate, it poisons everything. We forget everything. That, what's that famous quote, that that the love of a lifetime is forgotten in a moment of hate. So yeah, but I don't, that incident, I guess it was recently when I was reading this verse, it just came to me. I didn't actually realize, it just occurred to me, so it derailed my thoughts a bit. But it's a shame. Yeah, but we will get this in life. You get people that, this happens. May Allah bless everybody's families and remove any kind of hostility from their hearts. But we do see it. There's another, somebody I know, a dear friend, who once told me that his son, who, again through separation, at one point said to him as a grown-up, he was trying to ask, oh, what happened? He was concerned about something that happened, and his son just told him to F off. Wow, that's, see, but this comes back to tarbiyah. There is an element of tarbiyah here. But the verse in the Quran here is reminding us that, look, hostility may strike. It doesn't mean it will always. It may strike from much closer than you imagine. You're preparing for that battle. You're preparing for that war. You're preparing against them. यार, दुश्मन तो यहाँ से निकला, या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनू इन्न मिन अज़वाजिकुम व औलादिकुम अदुव्वन लकुम. Even from amongst, this is saying even from amongst they can be. Doesn't mean there is always, but even from amongst your own spouses and your own children can be enemies for you. فاحذروا. See, the first instruction, be wary. Don't be so blind. And this being wary can mean many things. It can also mean that at times you have to know when to give up. Sometimes we mentioned about relationships. People have to know that TK, they tried something, it doesn't work, but let's not have more. They have to know when to give up sometimes, at least when to place certain parameters. But it also means be wary, فاحذروا. Take care of yourselves. Put yourself first. That thing that they say all the time in planes, that if you've got a young, children with you, put oxygen on yourself first, then on them. Because if you don't put it on you, you're not going to be able to help them. That's why the other verse of the Quran says, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. Save yourselves and ahlik, then your families. So, firstly, Allah is reminding you to a duty of self-healing. You want to heal them, you want to be there for them, but first Allah is saying, be there for you. Be there for you. Like, I don't care about me. No. Allah cares about you. Children, they're dear to you. You're thinking, yeah, but they're my children. Well, you're God's children. We are the children of God. Not physical children, but as the Quran mentions, Abna'ullah. We are God's creatures. So you have a duty, fahdharu. Take care of yourself. Self-heal. If you're feeling yourself getting run down with despair, despondency, depression, you need to activate that willpower and get out of it. Pull yourself up from the bootstraps, however it's done. Get to the gym, get running, start eating healthy, start taking care of yourself. Rule number 1. Then the Quran says, see, because to take care of yourself, you're self-motivated to do that as well, although we get lazy and forgetful. And then look at this lesson. وَإِن تَعْفُوا. Allah. You see, now it's coming back to those people. Because look, when your own family does it to you, when your own friends, when your own people close to you, it hurts harder. That's more hard hitting. As Nabigha had said, لَظُلْمُ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى أَشَدُّ مَضَادَةً عَلَى الْمَرْءِ مِنْ وَقْعِ الْحُسَامِ الْمُحَنَّدِ. That the strike of a family member or somebody near and dear to you is much more hard-hitting than in their day and age, the Muhannad sword, which was a sword that used to come from India, was really rated as one of the top swords that the Arabs had. It says it's more hard-hitting than a Muhannad. لَظُلْمُ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى أَشَدُّ مَضَادَةً عَلَى الْمَرْءِ مِنْ وَقْعِ الْحُسَامِ الْمُحَنَّدِ. So the second thing Allah says, وَإِن تَعْفُوا. But if you can forgive, وَتَصْفَحُوا, and wipe over, Allah, وَتَغْفِرُوا, تَغْفِرُوهُمْ, you forgive them. Allah is saying, now this is a hard level. But the bar is being set high for us, because that's where we've got to aspire. وَأَتَغْفِرُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Remember, Allah is Ghafur Rahim. Look at yourself. How many times have you wronged people? Allah has still showered countless opportunities on you. He never stopped his rizq for you, ever. Despite you ignoring your potential, ignoring your opportunities, ignoring, wasting so much of your life, wronging other people, wrong. Allah still, Allah was still there for you. Can you embody some of that characteristic and quality? It's a powerful lesson. And the twist in it is that if you do, you release a prisoner, as the quote that we shared earlier on. You come to learn that that prisoner was actually you. See, the irony is you're actually helping yourself. You think you're doing a good deed to them. You think, yeah, chalo, jane do, yeah. Forget about it. You know, bygones are bygones. But actually, you're self-healing. You owe it to you to heal. Yeah, this is honestly, I want to share this. And I think there's a hadith just after this in Abu Dawood that is in this on this theme, that an Ibn Abbas, that the Messenger of Allah said, "Man lazim al-istighfar," and this is a deeper level of istighfar, not just the astaghfirullah, 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 but it's this realization, this seeking pardoning, not just for you, for others, seeking betterment for you, self-healing, seeking betterment for them. جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ مِنْ كُلِّ ضِيقٍ مَخْرَجًا. A person who can abide by that, Allah will create for them an exit strategy. Allah will create for them an escape from any difficulty that they find themselves in life. Min kulli dhiqin makhraja. Wa min kulli hammin, and from every depression, faraja, a relief. Wa razaqahu, and Allah will shower his rizq min haythu la yahtasib, upon this person who cannot even imagine where this rizq is coming from. You know, that startup's taking off, this contract's coming from here, that all of a sudden they're getting hours in another place, all of a sudden they're getting money, rizq, abundance. And rizq is in material abundance, but also abundance of clarity, abundance of contentment, abundance of happiness. This person's just happy. Wherever you see them, just beaming this light, positivity. Like, yeah, what does this guy eat? What does this person, what vitamins are they on? Why are they so happy? See, this is razaqahu Allah min haythu la yahtasib. Yeah, I really want to share this with us because it's a new year and so many of us are carrying burdens. We need to just let go and keep moving forward. Keep on that journey of self-healing. Ameen. Right, I hope that's of some help. May Allah bless you all. Ameen. Bless us all, because, you know, we're all in need of this. We're all insan, we're on the same boat, man. Everybody's just on this journey. Right, let me see some of your comments, and I'm going to share a link if anybody wants to jump on. Shukran Good says, I'm home doing nothing. Well, see, that's a luxury in itself. Right, so, and we've got it. Inshallah, Allah is indeed so gracious. He is. I mean, just the Mufti hit me. Allah spoke to your situation. May Allah bless your situation and create ease for you. I mean, whatever it may be. Right. As Lonzetta said, look, don't worry about it. that is the attitude we have to have in life, though. Don't worry about it. You know, because everything's gonna go anyway. Let's enjoy it. You see, just because, what was it that Jordan Peterson said? He said, just because the symphony is going to end, it doesn't mean it's not worth listening to. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So, what else is going on, people? Let me share the link. And is this here? It is. All right. All right, people. Here you go. Ah, shukran, shukran. Clear, much appreciated. Yeah. So I've shared the link in the comments. Right. Let me. Yeah. Well, I've had most. I need to nap after this anyway. So let's not take too much of the coffee. Take the agua. Agua. All right. Why not? Huh? Water. On a side note, we spoke earlier on about atheists sometimes attacking Islam. So, what was the verse? Let me see. I saw something. Let me see if I can bring it. Well, I've shared the link anyway. And till you guys are looking at that, let me see. I made a note. What was it? Just slipped my mind again. I'll see if I can. Right. Just bringing this up. Oh, right. Here it is. Yes. Right. Oh, yes, that's it. Yeah, that was it. Slipped my mind for a moment. Right. No, we're speaking about atheists and sometimes what their thoughts on, and that was it. There was a verse that they had. This atheist was saying on there. Who was it? I can't remember now. An American, but I don't know whether it was Dillahunty or whether it was somebody else. But he said that, look, here's this is very. Somebody had asked him, how would you refute Islam, and he says, oh, it's so easy, blah 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 blah, and he says, God says that He created everything in pairs. There's some creatures, reptiles, that have parthenogenesis. So there you go, refuted, full stop, done. I mean, that's just like, okay. Yeah. It's like, okay, would you like to engage in that question, or would you just, is that it? You've said it, you've had it, you figured it, TK, you caught God out. Is that it? You've caught God out. It's done. God's like, oh damn, we almost got away with it, but along comes this atheist. So so this is the example. Now you take this verse. Now here's a simple example. You say, okay, but does it mean that? And say, oh, but now every time you make a mistake, you say it's we got to look at it like poetry. We got to look at it like symbolically. We got to look at, oh, that's just because you caught out. Say, no, but that's how language, including the Arabic language, is used. That's how the Quran actually uses the language. So yes, there is a verse, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ. And they say, oh, but this means every single thing. Say, but does it? It says, yeah, but kulli, every, all. So say, okay, but what about that verse in, what is it, Surah Ahqaf, where Allah says, it's the verse. Allah is saying that these people were ruined, and that this punishment came, it engulfed these people. وَتُدَمِّرُ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا. That this, like a hurricane kind of storm that came, that destroyed the whole that town. تُدَمِّرُ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. Kul. Does it say kul? Kul. كُلَّ شَيْءٍ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهَا. Destroyed everything. Everything. فَأَصْبَحُوا لَا يُرَى إِلَّا مَسَاكِنُهُم. That's the same verse. Carry on reading. So you could not see any remnants for them except their abodes, except their buildings. But I thought it began by saying, تُدَمِّرُ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ, destroyed everything, so that you could not find from their remains except their buildings. That's a verse of the Quran. That's how the language is used. That's how Arabic is used. That's how many of languages are used. That when you are saying something, it is in context. It does have a context. It is addressing something. So this is a known thing in usul. Whenever a person studies, it is in usul, but it's also in ilm al-balagha. If you study rhetoric and badi and ma'ani, which is just part of rhetoric and understanding a deeper grasp of language in Arabic, one of the things you come across is things like this discussion. When the word kul is used, does it always mean kul? It doesn't. Like, obviously it means all, but it doesn't. It's just in context to something. So just as if I said, oh yeah, I finished it all, or yeah, I know it all. Does it mean that a person that there's every single thing is consumed by? No, it's within that context. So just as if a person said, hey, I'm the first person to come here today, or okay, if I was to say, hey, I'm the first person to, right, I'm the first, I did this, I got the answer. That doesn't mean that the first ever, it just means the first in that situation. So yes, I remember watching that clip, and it was just the look on his face with the kind of like, haha. It's like, oh, you want me to debunk the Quran? Well, it said, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجًا. Parthenogenesis. You're thinking, acha, acha. Point. Yaar, oof. Angels are like, yaar. Ladka takkar ka hai. The arrogance. It is humorous, I must say. It's you got to see the humor in these things. So yeah, amazing. So this is why if people actually want a dialogue, that's much more interesting. Right, let's see. I did share the link. Right. Okay, is this the link? Yep, let me share that. What do we call bad hazmi? Indigestion? I don't know why we're asking that, but yep. Right, people, let me see who we have today. I've got to just. All right. It's always feel, look, as a pilot, that reminds me, I saw this clip. I mentioned pilot, and I saw this. I'll just bring this up while time. This clip about some flight that's landing in Nepal, I take it, that crashes. And it was so damn, I mean, it's somebody is live streaming the landing. So, he's just saying, look, he's just, oh, look, we're about to land. And he's saying some stuff in Hindi and just laughing and joking. And he's even, I think, making some jokes about, what's going on or something. But then the next thing you know, everything's jolted around and there's just flames everywhere. And it's still live streaming. And then obviously it cuts off. Within literally 5 seconds, it's like the whole thing, maybe 10 seconds. It's like, Ya salam. Just like that, their lives were gone. It's really gripping to just watch. Wow. Yes, Allah. May Allah make it easy on their families. I mean, right. So what's going on when I look at somebody said, how do we deal with materialism? How do we cure it? And Amy said, well, when I look at my bank account, my materialism goes. True that. Oh, right. Have I put this on in settings? Right. One moment. I got to activate. Oh, it is. I can hear it loud and clear. All right. Who do we have here? We have Ishaq. Ishaq, if you switch on your webcam so we can see the noor on your face, then we can bring you on. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, Mufti. How are you doing?
Good. Allahu Akbar.
You are such
Joining us
an
from
elusive man. I tell you. I mean, I think it's easier getting hold of a jinn than it is getting in contact with you.
Today there was this post going of people sharing it that the jinn are on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen this. Have you seen it? That
Wow.
some people are sharing that this jinn has created a Twitter page. And they're like, oh my God, and he's got 100,000 followers already. Wow. So, all right, where are you joining us from, Ishaq? I love the vibe you've got going on, by the way, man. This whole Malcolm X thing, I'm feeling, I'm loving it.
you know.
That's it. Wow. That is iconic.
Yeah, I'm joining you from Copenhagen, Denmark.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm
Yeah,
liking that,
I've
man.
lately
Yes.
been reading up on changing your life through changing your thought process. And after I think it was a 3 month course I took at the Proctor Gallagher Institute. I don't know if you've heard about it,
No.
but it focuses on the law of attraction.
Okay.
And one of the things, I don't know if you've heard about the law of attraction,
Yeah, of
or
course.
the law of vibration, but in
Mhm.
order to attract the things you want in life, you have to because on a quantum realm, everything is in
Yeah.
vibration, and everything has a
Yeah.
positive and a negative.
Mm.
And human beings, we are able to um, to stimulate our molecules in a positive direction and in a negative direction, all depending on how our thought processes work. And I like the example of a man in the woods who
Okay.
spots a bear, and
Okay.
when he sees it, his digestive system stops, his nervous system um, pumps adrenaline, and his heart rate increases,
Yeah.
which makes him set off quicker than he's usually able to run. Now,
Yeah.
let's say that it wasn't a bear, but it was actually some naked hairy guy he saw in the woods that looked like a bear. That tells us
Yeah.
that his body is not responding to what he saw, but how he perceives what he
So you
saw, what he
perceived it.
sees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Mm.
uh, that made me it's it reminded me of the saying, I believe it was Hassan al-Basri, who said, uh, to contemplate for just 1 hour is better than
Yeah.
than 70 years of worship. I think
Yeah.
that's how the hadith
Yeah.
goes, and
Something
it
like
just
that.
it
Yeah.
just aggravates me a bit because I wish I knew this stuff before, and there I think there's a lack of of emphasis on the Islamic, how do you say, the Islamic standpoint when it comes to the law of attraction. I don't know if
Yeah.
you have you've ever like read up any on
So,
anything.
yeah. I mean, you're right. From an Islamic, I've spoken a few times on this, but when we say written on it, I don't think there is much written on it, and I agree with you that I think there's so much that is just being missed here,
Mm.
because there is a reality to certain. Obviously it depends as well, because there's a huge overlap in what is being meant, and then there are some fringes as well when people say these things, law of attraction. But generally, to understand it in this way, that what we're saying is your mindset, the thoughts, they impact your world.
Right.
Now, that is undeniable. I mean, we will have several studies will show people. So taking negativity as an example, and negativity seems to plague the mind much more than positivity. And people who had experiments where they repeat negative thoughts to themselves or
Yes.
repeat positive thoughts, and the results they find, I mean, there's been so many studies on things like this.
Mm.
So and just even the vibrational, the fascinating study, I believe it was a Japanese study, where they had people shouting angry things at a plant,
Yeah.
and where they were saying nice things to loving, kind of like, not just loving, but they were expressing this emotion towards a
Mm.
plant, a group of people,
Mm.
and then seeing how the plant deteriorated, or it just prospered and grew.
Mm.
So all of these things, that there's research as well showing this. And from an Islamic perspective, I often cite the hadith that, and it's a sahih hadith, that the uh, hadith Qudsi, that Allah is saying, "Ana inda abdi ka dhannihi bi," that I treat my person as he expects me to treat them.
Mm.
So if you expect, and it comes back to that thing, if you are anticipating goodness in the world, you are anticipating prosperity and risk and abundance,
Mm.
then you shall find it 100%. If
Mm.
you have that, and it's fascinating, because at the thought level, the realm of thought is the realm of niyyah, of intention. That's that same realm. And there's so much in Islam about niyyah,
Mm.
about, because niyyah is kind of like, it's organized thought. Because thought is just, you're getting this, you get,
Mm.
there's a thought, is a thought,
Mm.
and then you organize it in a way, and that is the realm, that is that kind of domain of niyyah.
Mm.
Otherwise, people ritualize these things. They started saying, well, Nia is, I'm making Nia to go to. Sure, I mean, if that helps you, you're saying it aloud, but really, it's about an attitude.
Right.
You've got that. It's about those that, if you want to say it on this level, that vibrational element.
Mm.
You've got that. And I just last week actually went over a verse, which is a really powerful verse, and it's in line with all of this.
Mm.
And it's very well known that وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ
Mm.
الْعَالَمِينَ. And I said that many people read this at one layer. So they say that, you do not will something, and
Mm.
they read illa as unless God wills it.
Yes.
So they read it from that perspective, that basically Allah is in control, and if Allah wills, then you will have that good deed. Sure, that's one way of looking at it. But I said that the other way, and this is, you see, you apply fresh eyes, and the Quran it adds meaning to your daily life.
Mm.
That, look, same verse, same word. وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ, you do
Mm.
not will something except that God wills it.
Mm.
By you willing something, having that, you see, you bring it into your forefront, that I want to do this. Allah wills it to happen.
Oh,
It's the same verse, and
mm.
it's so much more empowering.
Yeah.
And so 100%. And I love that there's been these studies as well, and you're probably very familiar with them, on this, on the brain, heart coherence
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that you see, I found that really intriguing, that they were saying that the showing that the heart creates a magnetic field, like it has an impact of a kind of a very obviously a small magnetic resonance around it. And it
Yes.
says which can span anything between 3 feet to maybe 5 6 feet in
Yeah.
certain what they were sampling. And that's just based on the beat, the electrical kind of element to the heart, that it's creating that.
Most definitely.
And
It can also be sorry to cut you in, but it
no,
can
no,
also be, there's a I forgot his name, but there's a Russian photographist. He actually invented a way to capture a person's
oh
energy
wow,
depending on what mood
okay,
they were in. So
yeah,
it's something that can actually be quantified, you know.
wow. And if a person, and this the name's slipping my mind now, what's the name of he's very famous for speaking about this stuff all the time. He's really popular, has all these courses as well and things. But
Andrew
I
Tate.
think is it doctor, no, no, not Andrew Day, doctor, is it Joe something? But
Mm,
right. So,
mm,
but he speaks of, well, you see, you have this kind of electromagnetism, this field
yeah.
that is kind of created.
Mm,
But he speaks about if you get your thoughts in a line with that,
mm,
that if you, he's speaking about this coherence, that if the mind is there as well,
mm,
it has a different impact.
yeah.
And this in the Islamic tradition is where people will say that with the presence of certain people, they have this kind of this barakah of a feel, that it changes hearts, that by just meeting someone, the heart is changed.
Right.
Yeah. And I feel this is all that same thing. And I agree with you. I think
Mm,
there can be so much done on this.
yes.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
But not to turn it, um, but to avoid any superstition, because
Mm,
this is why I said there could be some beliefs on the fringes where people um they might turn into, look, if I don't say this on so many times, that something bad is going to happen. Or if
right.
I don't, oh my god, I didn't I'm not, it's not going to manifest because I didn't do my what do they call them, the affirmations.
Mm,
I didn't do my affirmation, and oh my god, now it's not going
yeah.
to happen. Or
Yeah.
so as not to avoid all that kind of where it turns superstitious,
Right.
just to take the good. But yeah, so have you been, you've been into reading into a lot of this for a while
Yeah, yeah,
before,
yeah,
what's your
and it just, it just gave me a whole new perspective to life. Well, one short testimony, that it has also transformed my life in incredibly, especially
wow,
coming from a Salafi background when I was a
wow.
teen, and then graduating from that into deeper thought. But yeah, so yeah, that's just one of the key issues I wanted to discuss. I also have a some of the thoughts that have really been grappling with me
Yeah.
lately, especially since I got a son. Um,
Oh, mashallah, Allah bless, Allah mabarik fihi wa
I mean,
fikum jami'an,
I
amin.
mean, yeah, yeah. Okay, so it's a bit hard for me to articulate this because English is not no longer my first language, even though I did attend a British school when I was a lad
Your
in Kenya.
English is awesome. English
Thanks.
is awesome. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to young people and marriage, I mean, the Islamic discourse is just filled with so much
Yeah,
useless dogma that I have seen so many of my friends' lives completely ruined, and it's not because these people are bad people. It's
yeah,
because the discourse that rarely uh, takes into account contemporary issues. So let's say that we have a person X
yeah,
who's reached his 20s, and he's for lack of better words, he's in his sexual prime, okay, right?
yeah.
So to just be clear, he just wants sex,
Okay.
and and us men especially, I think
Mhm.
we have a tendency to not be fully mature until we are in our 40s, and that
I
is
absolutely second that. That's 100%.
right.
I think that once we reach our 40s,
Yeah,
it's starting. The journey now has just begun. You
exactly.
seem very young, though.
I just turned 30.
30. Yeah, I was about, you precociously arrived at this. Yeah, you're ahead of the curve. You are, mashallah.
Well, you should tell that to my wife. Yeah.
Can you please put the gun down? Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. From 20s to 40s, what usually happens to so many young men is that we are evolving, and that means our priorities change. If you saw me when I was in like 17, 18, you see a beard, you see me totally disheveled, grumpy, angry all the time.
I know that feeling. I was there as well.
Yeah, and that is because I was living a very hardline a Salafist hardcore life. But as you mature, you start to evolve. Now this is just a very basic example, but this happens to everybody. And what also happens to, people who choose their spouse in their 20s,
Yeah,
that also means that their preferences also change with time.
naturally.
So what happens is you have, at least I can speak in Denmark. I mean, out here we have a huge disaster of a whole generation of single mothers, Muslim single mothers out there who got married when they were young, simply because the sheikhs and the whole, not just the sheikhs, because
Yeah,
the sheikhs, they're just a symptom. I'm talking about a whole global discourse, Islamic
yeah,
discourse.
yeah,
And when you ask the sheikhs, you talk to scholars about, well, it's difficult to get married. The stakes are high, and not to mention, common law. I think even in the UK, it's not only half that a woman gets; it's your entire net worth that she also inherits, even
yeah.
before you got married. I mean, what? Subhanallah.
I find, on a side note, those things absolutely tyrannical,
Right.
and they're very. It's a shame because these things. I get it. I feel that they are. They're destroying the very thing they came to protect, because the point was to protect the
Mm,
rights of women,
yeah.
which 100% should be done. But what it's doing is now people, and I don't blame them, are not interested in the institution of marriage.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So basically, and even with modern elements all around us, when you are, first of all, monogamy is not natural. Let's just be honest, it's not natural for the common man.
Go on, then. You convinced me, Ishaq. I wasn't convinced.
Be- because
give me
as
give me one give me one reason why it's not natural.
biology, men
Okay, I'm
by
convinced. Okay, I'm convinced.
yeah. I mean, men are stuck in a men men are stuck in a dilemma of a post-colonial reality. I mean, we don't have concubines today, unfortunately. We don't have, I mean, okay, in
Yeah,
some cultures,
we gotta.
polygamy, especially
Yeah,
in African societies, it's not that unheard of to find
yeah,
polygamous families or women who accept polygyny. However, it is still very expensive,
yeah. It would be.
especially for young men who do not have the means and are in their sexual prime. And then you have mobile gadgets, you have cell phones. I remember back in the day when one of our imams, very pristine imams, was asked what he's supposed to do with his mobile phones and his gadgets, because he keeps looking at TikTok and women shaking their graceful proportions, so to speak. Um, then he just said,
He's contemplating over the creation of God.
"Go the creation of Allah." Tabarakallah wa ahsanul khaliqeen.
See,
Yeah,
there's some people who, everything just reminds them back to the path of spirituality.
yeah, and and
Yeah.
and and so and mind you that this scholar is very intelligent,
Mhm.
but his answer, it was really indicative of how religious dogma can even make even the most intelligent among us so stupid. Because what the imam
Mm.
said was, oh well, then you should throw your gadgets away.
Oh, wow.
Then
Okay.
then he said, well, I need my gadgets. I go to work with them. I need them for school and so on. Then he said, oh well, then you should fast. Come on. I was just thinking, get real, man. Come on. What world are you living in? what world are you living in to tell him get
Uh,
fast? You're not offering any practical solutions.
yeah.
Basically, it comes down to this.
I heard once somebody say, I was in this talk and this sheikh was being asked this question,
Mm,
and he said, you know what? He said, at that time, the guy said, I think the question was the person takes his laptop or he takes these devices into the bathroom, and or he takes these devices into it, and obviously it's it's to continue watching the Netflix show that he's watching. What else? It's to continue learning. They don't want to interrupt their learning, of course, right? So
yeah,
or the audio book is just that good that
mm,
he's like, yeah, I gotta keep. So the sheikh said, oh, did he say bathroom? I think he said no, actually bedroom. I think he said bedroom, right? So he
mm.
said he does this in the bedroom, and so the sheikh said, okay, what you do? He said just take the door off its hinges. Like seriously, he said like just don't have a door, and he said you'd rather have that than the fire of hell. And I thought, what? but it's but it's just I was quite because first I thought he said it as a joke, but he didn't. He said it like he was seriously saying it. He was like,
Yeah,
just unscrew the hinges and remove your
right.
door,
Yeah.
and that way you won't be. And thought, okay,
Mm. Well,
but it
well,
just
there you
comes
go.
back to what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
mm,
exactly. So basically, it comes down to this: our children are going to grow up, and sooner
mhm.
or later, my youngin, Malik, he's going to ask me about,
Malik.
you know,
All
yeah,
right, I like it.
yeah, he's 3 years old now, but when he turns 15, 16, I'm going to be confronted with an issue, and that
Hmm.
is, do we as a community need to accept that marriage, the way we ontologically understand marriage, do
Hmm.
we accept it as obsolete,
Hmm.
or what other solutions are there? I mean, okay, there is personally, I am a big fan of Ibn Ashur and
Okay,
his view
well.
on nikah and muta,
Mhm.
but but um but
And just for
even
research purposes, you
just for
obviously have
research
to you have to
purposes,
you have
yeah,
to you have to
purely
check whether
academic.
it works. You go, look, I tried it a couple of times. It actually works.
Purely academic. But even then, I mean, come on. How many Muslims, especially Sunni Muslims, are you going to find accepting their daughter participating in that type of institution? Not because it's wrong within of itself. It's just because the whole discourse is so sectarianized.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just full of
exactly.
sectarianism. Even though
It
the
is.
Shias do have a point. And I
Yeah,
remember
they
when I
do.
was younger, all my Sunni friends would just be, glossing over the Shia. Oh my God, those guys, they're so lucky. you know yeah, I mean, what are
Yeah,
the do we just have to accept that there are no real solutions?
yeah.
Because
This
I
is
don't know what to
such a
do.
good question, man.
Mm.
Just on a side note, I'm really intrigued. You seem also like you've had a journey of Islamic learning as well, and I'm just curious. What is a bit of that? If you'd share a bit of that with us, I'm just really intrigued. That's all,
Well,
and then we come back to this question because this is a very important discussion. Yeah.
yeah, so I converted to Islam when I was 17 years old. Um, I was also fortunate enough, because the high school I attended, a year later, added Arabic as a language you could learn at a very high level.
Okay. Well, this is a
So
regular school. It's not an Islamic school.
no, it was a high school. Yeah, it was just,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then, with my Arabic, uh, as a language, since I had it down on paper, I was able to attend, a very intensive course in Arabic studies in Morocco, and that was sort of my introduction to Maliki Islam, um, of which I'm a very huge fan, by the way. Um,
All right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
All the way. That's
yeah,
it. Have to do
exactly.
the M. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is something. Yeah, that
And
is.
yeah, so I was also very fortunate enough to meet some of the scholars of the Qarawiyyin, and as I mastered the Arabic language, that also opened up my horizon to a whole new side of Islam that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, certainly.
I am still learning. I'm not being humble, but I am still a beginner. Studied the Akhdari, the Waglisi.
Wow.
The
Okay. Brilliant.
I studied the works of Amadou Bamba from Senegal.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's no,
But
that's
but
really
I call
impressive.
it casual learning. So
No,
I
but
would say I
that's
would
good.
say I am preview to the discourse. Yes.
Wow, no, I love that, man. That's really
Mm.
that's good, man. That's quite a journey.
Yeah.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
since you're
Yeah.
17, embraced Islam, you first of all the Salafi-esque kind of
Mm.
journey, that hard line.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go through that, and that sometimes I think if you go through that in your late teens,
Mm.
um, it actually can have a cost benefit to it for later on in life in understanding what other people are going through. And you're like, well, the only I think it's a bit like measles. If it comes later in life, it can be devastating.
Right.
but
Yeah.
but if you get it out the way whilst you're young, and
Mm.
you're like some kind of hard line, I mean, not
Mm.
extremist, but you're like really ascetic, and like you
Yeah.
said, you're scruffy, and you're
Mm.
but but then as you grow out of it with maturity, you're like, ah, yeah, I remember I
Mm.
used to behave like this, and
Yeah.
now I see it differently. So yeah, okay, that's
Yeah.
awesome stuff. And the Maliki thing as well, I think that's really, and your link with Morocco, I think
Mm.
that's yeah, that's something amazing. And Qarawiyyin, yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the I went over there, visited a few times actually, and
Mm.
visited at that time. Now he's retired from there, I believe, but he was like the grand sheikh of the Qarawiyyin for a good while. That was Sheikh Muhammad Rugi.
Oh, okay.
They
Mm.
spelt it as, I mean, they write it as a Ruki with a
Mm.
calf, but he pronounced
Yeah.
it as a Rugi.
Yes.
And yeah, and he was
He fell ill
somebody
some time ago, didn't he?
with the COVID
Yeah,
thing.
I
I
think so.
thought, yeah, I
Yeah.
heard something with the COVID,
Yeah.
but I mean, I heard that he did get better, Allahu A'lam.
Mm.
But I mean, with all of that, he'd gone. I think a lot of things just went quiet, and
Mm.
because places just quietened down. But
Mm.
yeah, Morocco overall, Morocco is another example of where there is so much creative scholarship or thought, but
Yes.
it's not really being channeled out, or
Definitely.
it's not, the platforms are not really there. And a
No.
good example is, like, you could take the Qarawiyyin, which is arguably amongst the oldest universities in the world, and amongst the oldest Islamic
Mm.
universities. So you've got the three, whether it's going to be Al Azhar and
Mm.
Zaytuna,
Right.
and it's going to be Qarawiyyin, and the latter two, Zaytuna and the Qarawiyyin, being Maliki,
Mm.
and they have this legacy of over 1,000 years of but yet they don't even have a decent functioning website.
Website. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, they don't,
Yeah.
do you? Like, I tried going on the years ago on the Qarawiyyin website. It was just useless. It was in French and just had the academic, okay, the timetable and
Yeah.
stuff, and you're
Yeah.
like, where the hell is the
Exactly.
how difficult would it be for and Morocco does have a kind of Wizarat al-Awqaf. It has
Mm.
this whole ministry which is under the king, and it
Mm.
has that funding to it. But
Yeah.
how difficult would it be to just commission a couple of people, or even one person or somebody, just give them a salary for a
Mm.
year to develop a website, have all these fatwa, have all of these
Exactly.
things put on there,
Exactly.
make it accessible, get it
Especially
then.
especially for non-Arabic speakers. I mean,
Yeah, and then
that is the
I
biggest
think if they
crisis.
I think if they spent the first year just collating it and
Yeah.
putting it on there, creating a very modern, accessible website, the
Right.
second year they can
Mm.
translate it. The whole year's commission is just to translate into English,
Right. Right.
translate into French.
Yeah.
It's, that's like, wow. Okay, it would be breathtaking, and just put it out there on Google. Make it
Mm.
get, because you go onto Google, you type in a question, and if you were just AI, you would assume that the majority of the Muslim world is Salafi, because that's
Exactly.
all. Because if you're searching in Arabic, that's all that comes up.
Right.
It's like, out of, let's say, out of 25 websites,
Mm.
probably 20 that will come up will just be referencing the same kind of Sheikh Salih Al Fawzan, Sheikh Al
Exactly.
Munajjid,
Mm.
Sheikh Al Albani, Sheikh Bin Baz, Sheikh,
Mm.
and this is it. And Sheikh Ibn Taymiyyah said this, and Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah. And only if you know what you're looking for, you're targeting your questions, then you might find Dar al-Ifta al-Misriya,
Right.
such and such Sheikh from Al-Azhar.
Mm.
Such, and you can't even find the Qarawiyyin people. You can't,
Yeah.
you know, unless you know exactly their name and everything and the answer they've said,
Exactly.
then you can find it. But
Right.
yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
But
That's yeah.
yeah. But when it comes to this to the topic of modern
Yes.
sexuality, so what do you think
This
are
is
the
really, honestly, this is such a, you know, it's like a glitch
mm,
in the system, because we, you know, years ago I went on a retreat, and so it must have been, I don't know now, like probably the better part of, probably about 8 years ago or something. But I did this retreat. I was invited there, and they were college students and some just entering university. And they they asked a question about relationships and stuff like this. And I said this then, and we're still 8 years later, we're still at the same crossroad. I said that unfortunately, religion with a capital R, I'm not saying religion inherently, but the way it's presented, the way it's
right
presented
institutionalized religion?
institutionally,
Yeah.
like what we have access
Mm,
to. So
mm,
what's on the menu, for
mm,
example, it appears to offer no solution to this problem. It appears to fail
mm,
on providing a real life, like it has answers, like, so there's something on the menu, but the answers, like you said, they don't appear commensurate for,
mm.
or to hold much ecological validity, real life. You know, it'll say things like, oh, just get married. but
Right.
but then marriage isn't, like, marriage is such a big thing in societies, and so especially in many Muslim cultures,
Mm,
it's like a merging of families. And you wouldn't say to somebody who's 16 or 17, like you said, you know, when your kid turns 16, 17, or 15 or 18, he's is most likely going to be having these conversations, or he's going to be having these encounters in life, or
mm,
at that, you know, at that frontier. So you wouldn't just say to you know, a 15-year-old or a 17-year-old, oh, go get married. Now, okay, so what else does it offer? So what's on the menu? So, like, what, you know, we've got this, what does it say here? So it says, well, okay, fast.
mm.
Now, that, once again, that's not a very practical reply or a real world reply. And I'm not saying fasting doesn't have health benefits. It has immeasurable health benefits. I mean,
Yes.
fasting is so beneficial that now health nutritionists and you know, health doctors, that is something I've been learning about so much, especially since late last summer, since my mother was diagnosed with cancer. And one of the things I started to watch and learn was how beneficial fasting is in just overall life. It's just
Mm,
shocking. The, you know, the hadith of the Prophet, sumu tasihu, that
mm,
fast and you will find yourself in good health. It seems counterintuitive, but it's
mm.
shocking that now the science is showing. So
So,
I'm a huge fan since I found out about fasting. And in fact, since I've been learning about this, I delay my, if I want to call it breakfast now, if I call it that, brunch or whatever, it's till lunch. I don't eat from the morning till earliest it'll be after 11, if not
mm,
11:30 or noon.
yeah.
And I've been doing that now for a few months. So I'm a huge fan of fasting, but let's be realistic. If you know, it's a very short temporary thing
Exactly.
to saying, you know, somebody is, it's not, this is not an issue of saying something like, oh, look, I've just torn this, could you fix it? And oh, the person, this is a lifelong issue. Like, the person
Mm,
has, obviously we have a sexual impulse,
mm,
so the question is, well, what do you do with it? And then I highlighted that scholars, for the most part, they will even say things like masturbation is haram,
yeah.
which, and that is true, isn't it? Now we're finding in the last 5 years, some of the mainstream scholars, like you had, or I say scholars, or people with a large following online, like Sheikh Yasser al-Qadi, Sheikh, or if you say Sheikh, but Dr. Zakir Naik, like these people in the last 5 years have now come on live and said, well, actually, maybe masturbation isn't haram. But you see, let's face it, majority of the scholars are still, they're refusing to even say that. And there's this interesting clip that I was this one was in Urdu, where this person, he's got this kind of podcast thing going with an imam, with a scholar. And he says to him that, look, now we know through biology, we know through science, there's so many benefits for masturbation as well. The release, and it can promote testosterone growth, it can promote certain things, and it obviously can keep sperm healthy as well. So for example, a person that ejaculates, at least a male that ejaculates at least, let's say, 20 times a month, that protects them or keeps their prostate very healthy. And so, in addition to many other things, it boosts immunity, fight off infections, all these kind of things. So, okay, he's saying all of this to the Molvi Saab, and he says, but you still speak. Are you not? What do you say about this? And the guy says, look, we know this. He says, yes, of course. I'm not saying there isn't. He goes, but we're not going to start now opening this in front of the public. So that's the only thing they end up doing. Like they just sit down and they just keep, gratifying themselves. So
devil's advocate.
Yeah.
They will justify using the hadith. حدثوا الناس على عقولهم أو كما قال. Speak to the address the people
according to their
intellect.
So he says this, that if we say this, then everybody's just going to sit at home masturbating, and the guy says, do you think they don't already? like do you think they're not doing it because of you not saying it? That's just like, you have to be incredibly naive to think people are that's just a natural thing which people are going to be doing anyway. The difference is they're just going to be grappling with the guilt,
right,
of thinking this is, oh my God, I've done something filthy. And then this creates a very unhealthy attitude, and it creates a very unhealthy mindset towards sex as well, because the whole thing is, because the whole thing is very guilt-ridden then. Because the person feels bad for having this desire, and they feel bad for, let's say, masturbating, or they feel bad for, and this whole thing is just laden with guilt. So I'm this terrible person, and it just down spirals. And so then they see this thing as like this lust, as something evil you just kind of throw off you. And that's weird, because you see, sexual energy is also a very powerfully healing energy. That, I mean, it's and from the essence, and there are Islamic things of showing, even where it's described this in a very positive charity, made it akin to charity. Like, you think something like that is so what it does to a person, this being the very source of life. And other traditions obviously speak of this much more, but in Islam as well, the sexual energy is not something negative. It shouldn't be anyway. And it's not, the Quran never describes sexual thing as something, it just leaves it as natural. And the hadith, or at least these hadith that show this teaching, I know people, the hadith about a person who gratifies himself, masturbates, all of those hadith are weak or fabricated. They're not authentic. So coming back to this question, and it's an amazing question, it's so relevant as well, that what are the solutions? Because people are not presenting any solutions. So they're not even accepting things like masturbation. I mean, that's like you said, well, that's like just something which people will do regardless whether people say it or not. And the other thing about mut'ah, that was something I mentioned back then at the point, saying that, look, I said, but the truth is, nobody is, like, the whole discourse is either so, like you mentioned, so tainted and so kind of all, it has this negative
Yeah,
feel
it
about
leaves
it.
people
Yeah,
with a bad taste
secular.
in the mouth.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
muta is seen as, oh, it's a Shia thing and this whole
Mm,
thing. And then I did have a discussion once with someone saying, well, what would the scholars feel about this, about relationships?
mm,
Just relationships that they have, that is this akin to, I said that, would ulama, like, doesn't ijtihad, now, like, this would be up for discussion. This ought to be like a discussion.
mm,
Sure, people can
mm,
reject it, people can say, look, no, I disagree with it, and this is the
mm,
dalail, and people can argue both sides. That are, for example, especially in this part of the world, relationships where people just, they're committed to someone, like they have boyfriend, girlfriend, but they're in a committed relationship, and
mm,
people know, is this then not, would this be, would the concept of nikah extend to covering that?
mm,
So that ought to, I would say, well, that's one step forward, that it
mm.
ought to be a discussion.
Definitely.
uh, and people can refute it. They can say, no, I don't accept it, because based on this, I present this alternative, or I say people could do this, or I say, whatever, let it being a discussion.
Mm,
Because in the past, you said earlier on about concubines, slave girls, and that's obviously something that is not part of the modern discourse. But
exactly.
in the past, it's interesting, I mentioned that, look, when we look at Islamic fiqh, it came across a, like, people can stand on both sides. They can loathe, or they can love this concept of concubinage. Okay,
Mm,
this kind of concubines and slave girls, and
mm,
and the sexual aspect involved. Sure, but I'm not even looking at that. I'm
mm,
not even, for this moment, I'm not even, that's not even the point. That's
mm,
not the point.
mm,
The point is that this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the fact that actually this was a very difficult topic. When you think about it, like, think about it, there was a topic that involved sex, which
mm,
is in many cultures a taboo, or it's seen as dark, this kind of, oh, this lustful energy. The scholars of the era were presented with a challenge where they saw that, okay, people had slaves and servants and these things anyway, but now there's this element of having sex with them.
mm.
And then they saw this thing of, well, people are going to do it anyway. And
I,
you see, it's interesting that, you see, to me, it's not the topic, it's the fact how they grappled with it.
I get your
And they
voice.
and they
Yeah.
they very openly
Mm,
just embraced it.
mm.
They just said, well, and they made it part and parcel of the fiqh books.
Right.
And people could say, well, actually, some of it is in the Quran.
Mm,
Well, you see, well, what's in the Quran is subject to, sure, some interpretation. The scholars, like, if you read the books of fiqh, they cover a lot more than what's in the Quran.
mm,
They cover so much more. They included all these extra parts. So
mm,
they just realized, okay, this is a challenge of the age.
mm,
What are we going to do? We could either say, look, okay, we're going to circumvent this, we're going to
mm.
do this, or we have to recognize that this is here. It's here to stay for the foreseeable future.
Right.
So let's tackle it.
Mm,
And that might include coming out with some bizarre statements. So people might say, when I say, look, when I propose as a topic for discussion,
mm,
should girlfriend, boyfriend be considered a committed relationship?
mm,
Be committed, should the nikah extend to that?
mm,
Now, that may be seen as a bizarre statement, but
mm.
then you've got topics like, well, they cover in all the fiqh books.
Right.
In most of the fiqh books, okay, if you're going to buy a slave girl, well,
Mm,
okay, well, can you look at her naked parts? Can you
mm,
look at her? Can you touch and feel?
mm,
And they have this discussion, in Muahibul Jalil and Mukhtasar Khalil, they has a detailed discussion. And this is
mm.
hundreds and hundreds of years ago. The fuqaha saying, well, okay, well, actually, you can, and that, now by today's standards, that's totally bizarre. I
Exactly.
mean, by
Right.
today's standards, people would just be doing window shopping all
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Because it just says, well, you can go and have a feel of this woman, and you can say, well, okay, I like this, this, how about that one's, and how about this one, and
Yeah.
okay, where's my credit card? And so
Yeah.
it's, so now that's very bizarre.
Right.
And that's incredibly radical, but
Yeah.
it's mainstream.
Mm.
It's in the mainstream books. It's not,
Mm.
I'm not reading something fringe. I'm reading
Right.
something mainstream that is so bizarre. I mean, everybody would agree that that is such a bizarre statement.
Mm.
But look to what extent they engineered to try to incorporate even the bizarre for what they felt was a challenge for their day and age.
Yeah.
So if you forget the topic, I mean, I don't want the topic to discuss people. Forget the topic for a moment. Just look at the the kind of daring ingenuity to
Mm.
kind of to go out there, put
Mm.
themselves out there, just to come up with some solutions.
Right.
It is quite breathtaking.
Yeah.
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 So
So basically, it is a matter of changing the perspective of ولا متخذات الأخدان, the without taking lovers. But then
hmm.
if the
But Akhdan, you see, that's a good one, yeah, because that's, you see, this is what I mean. If we have a discussion,
mm,
because the question is Akhdan wouldn't, like, it's not saying Ahbab, but like
uh,
Akhdan. Now we'd
mm,
have to really look into what was this Khadan
mm,
culture, this Akhdan culture that don't take these. You're right. These kind of what appears to be these secret lovers that, or the people are married and they're taking these things on the side. What was what was this about? Because somebody could just say, well, that's easy because that's wrong, and that's wrong in Islam.
mm,
But just from a moral, let's say somebody's coming from a morality perspective, but then
mm,
sure, having sex with your slave should be wrong as well.
mm,
Like I'm just saying, like if we're going from that morality, then
mm,
it would be easy to say, well, no, just outlaw this as well.
mm,
So it becomes a, the inner, the kind of mechanics
mm,
of the fiqh
mm,
operation um, going on. It's more complex than sometimes people think. Like
mm,
people come at it from like people will say, look, oh, it's about, and it is about all of these things. I'm not pushing one thing off the table. I'm saying
mm.
it's just more complicated than people think. Like
Right.
when they take the concept of um, morality and they say, well, this is sure, well, we're just coming from a better morality perspective. But
Mm,
then they say, well, you could say, well, okay, but the slave girl thing is very interesting because it's all part and parcel of every single fiqh book
mm.
in Islam.
Yeah.
And it says that the slave girl's breasts are not
Exactly.
necessary to be
Yeah.
covered.
Mm,
So you think, well, come on, let's be realistic. Which man would not be stimulated by just seeing women's breasts? Now, it doesn't matter whether she's a slave girl. To the man, it definitely doesn't matter. And today's sociological studies show that actually men are not as impacted by status as opposed to like when they've done social experiments on having, for example, men either dressed like they're some VIP or dressed
mm,
just well, or dressed like they're somebody that just works, does kind of like
mm,
a menial kind of job or some labor or some kind of bricklayer. They dress like that. And then they approach women. And what they do is they see that how far can this person with that attire get? So
mm,
can he get a number? Can he get a conversation? Can he flirt? Can he get her to go on a date? Can he get her to sleep with him? What? And they found that the person who comes off as a VIP
mm.
or like somebody really wealthy
High
and some
value
kind of
man.
celebrity, high value man,
Mm,
he can almost get everything.
yeah.
And the one that comes off dressed well, but maybe not as a high value, but still just dressed reasonably well, got some style to him, can mostly get everything or get quite far.
Mm,
And the one that comes off like he just stacks shelves in a Tesco or in a
mm,
Asda supermarket or just works at a petrol pump, they often cannot get far at all.
mm,
But what's interesting is when they've reversed the roles and had women dress
mm.
accordingly, every single woman got everywhere with the man. It's
Exactly.
like it didn't make a difference. Like if she was
Right.
ready to sleep with the guy, it doesn't matter what her status was, social
Mm,
status, he was happy to sleep with her.
mm,
So so this argument that, oh, men weren't interested in the women because they were servants and slaves, like every man writing that
Mm.
knows that, okay, well, I don't really believe that, but okay, I'm gonna
Exactly.
say it
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes such a fabulous,
Yeah.
this is such a pertinent discussion.
Yeah.
But the problem is with these as well is that there's this panopticism,
Mm.
this kind of um you see, there's this Muslims are this kind of like self-regulatory watchdog.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the panopticon?
Yeah. I've seen your
So,
video.
yeah, so the
Yeah.
panopticon, for people who don't know, it's basically, I mean, a lot of people use it. People like Foucault often speak of it, but it goes back to Jeremy Bentham, who postulated that, look, he kind of engineered, or he designed this prison that would, where all the guards would be in this kind of like circular cylinder kind of shape, the prison,
Mm.
where with this watchtower at the top with these bright lights coming out, and all the prison cells would be open so each prisoner could see another prisoner.
Mm.
And he argued that the bright light on the watchtower would be that bright that you can't tell whether the guard is watching you.
Mm.
So, because if you look up, you just see the light and you can't tell. So,
Yeah.
because you can't tell, there's a chance he is watching you, and therefore you self regulate your behavior.
Right. Mm.
So this panopticon effect, which people who are interested in power structures like Michel Foucault and other people often speak about,
Mm.
you see, this is what's going on, this panopticism, that the Muslim, the Islamosphere kind of self-regulates itself by, oh, I think he's watching me,
Mm.
so I better not say anything that's out of line, or I think
Mm.
she's watching me, or that group, and they end up just shackling themselves. And this
Yeah.
is, yeah, this is unfortunately an issue which I don't
Mm.
know how we can overcome that.
Yeah.
Maybe with time there will be
Yeah.
some solution.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah,
I appreciate
yeah,
your perspective. Um, the other thing that has that had me doing mental gymnastics for so long is the the arguments of well the hujjah of the Quran. How can the Quran? I mean, for me personally, I have absolutely no doubt when just reading the Quran that
yeah,
this is just so divine, but for none, especially pertaining to let's say this: how can the Quran be an argument against mankind? Well, not an argument against mankind, but an argument for the truth of Islam. How can the Quran be an argument or the validity for the whole backbone of Islam when most of humanity does not
mm,
speak Arabic,
hmm,
ancient Arabic at that, and
yeah,
that you have to undergo intensive decades of
yeah,
studying the Arabic language in Nahu, Balagha, Sarf, morphology, and so on, just to get somewhat, a grasp of how
yeah,
of the divinity of the Quran. How can the Quran then be an argument for Islam?
yeah, right, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a powerful and a good question. Rephrasing some of the words, so I wouldn't word it in that way, in saying that the Quran is there as this, um it's this ultimatum, in the sense that, aha, you didn't hear this, now down you go.
Mm.
Because I think that's misframing the message. I accept there may be many Muslims that believe so, that do think like that.
Mm.
But I don't believe the Quran itself is positioning itself in that way.
Okay.
Rather, the Quran, it's not, you see, so people often, I think there's there's a gap, and people have filled in the gap and they've made their own assumption. So people often say, well, how do you know Islam is true? Well, it's the Quran.
Mm.
And right now, the question is, well, the Quran doesn't necessarily say it like that.
Mm.
Sure, it calls people to ponder over God, but it doesn't necessarily say it like it does say that at certain times, have they not pondered over the Quran and that they don't find conflicting contradictions in it? It calls you to ponder over things like this, but it doesn't say it in this way that, right, anybody who reads this must believe. And if they don't believe, like, this is a compelling, like, this is a 100% airtight reading, that this is just an injection of Iman. Like it offers 100% immunity to kufr. If you take this, you've that's it. You're a mu'min. That clearly is not the case. Otherwise, the mushrikeen of Mecca, when they heard the Quran, would have become Muslim. So that was never, the Quran never positioned itself in that way. What it did say is that man ata, who came biqalbin salim, that who came with this sound heart, prepared to ponder, then these words will resonate a deep majesty and glory that if they ponder over that, it will leave them just so wowed. So sure, if not everybody will approach the Quran biqalbin salim, and many will approach the Quran not being able to understand its Arabic, like today. But what the Quran, what Islam, what the objective was, is that this Quran was revealed to the Prophet with the people surrounding him. They were the recipient community. This was to become a seed in their hearts if they approached it biqalbin salim, with this kind of heart of this tranquil heart ready to ponder. They would then become a seed, metaphorically, for the communities that come after them. And then you would have this flourishing, this kind of this tree that is this ummah that grows, and its fruits that it bears are for the world to see. So the world could see our fruit, like they could see, wow, but this is what the Quran, this is what Islam has produced. And this is why the Prophet was, when he was described, he was the walking, talking Quran. And what did that mean, that he was the walking, talking Quran? Where he's teaching people manners, he's teaching them forbearance, he's teaching them humanity. So people can, because people, let's face it, few people in humanity arrive at something just by reflection and pondering and a search. Many people, for most people, it's actions speak louder than words. Most people. I was listening to this podcast once again about I'm forgetting who it was now, but it's this was a woman explaining why she was an atheist. So she said, well, I used to be a devout Christian. And she said, and I went through this, years of, she's an American. She said, I went through all these things and I was really devout. And she said, well, one day I heard this one Christian mistreating somebody and saying, well, these people will all go to, whatever it was some kind of, and her circle just echoed that. And their attitude, she said, I just gave up on Christianity. And most people who deal with faith, it is like this, or they deal through things. It's actions speak louder than words.
That is true.
So that's how I would say that the Quran remains preserved, protected. Sure, if somebody by their search arrives at the Quran, and they even if they read it in another language, it will it will strike their hearts with awe. That is there, but their hearts have to be fertile for that. They have to be. It doesn't mean, the Quran does not say that this is kufr proof, that every single person that you read me to any person, they become a mu'min. That's bizarre. Nobody has ever said. The Prophet never said that. The Quran itself has never said that. So yes, and you are right that there are people that sometimes misunderstand, misconstrue. They say things, and they say it for a deep love that they have for the Quran. So, and they, saying it in this way hyperbolically, but it's inaccurate. what they're saying. It's a misplaced love, but it's yeah, it's probably
Right,
like that.
right. Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense, because one of the I used to have these outings with I don't know if you've heard about Aira.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that was the well,
Is that
yeah,
still? Is it still going? Or
yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
sure it is,
Okay,
sure it is.
okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, I met with Abdurrahim Green at one
Hmm.
point. So that was the like the the moderate segment of Salafis I used
Yeah.
to hang around with. But one of the as a salesman also, somebody who had experience in sales, what you would often do is that before you went out and do dawah, you would try to imagine what type of counter arguments or what type of objectives, especially a smart person, would ask. And I definitely knew that, man, if I meet a smart person who is going to say to me, how do you know the Quran is from God? And I just
Hmm.
say, well, because of the pristine Arabic language.
No, that
That
doesn't.
is not
Yeah.
going to cut it
Yeah,
at all.
because most of the world doesn't speak Fusha
Yeah.
Arabic, and in fact, I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, I watched it years ago. Since you spoke of Ira, because you have Hamza Totsis,
So it says
who's
yes.
who's a lovely brother,
Yeah.
mashallah, and
Yes.
so, and I have great respect for him. But
Mm.
he had a debate years ago with Lawrence Krauss,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure this point Lawrence Krauss picks out at him, saying,
Exactly.
because I'm sure he asks him that, but do you speak Arabic? And he says, no, I'm learning it. And he says,
Exactly.
so you don't read it
Exactly.
yourself. And that was a bit of, I mean, that was major kind of slacking point, where Lawrence Krauss had clearly got one over him at
Mm,
that point in the debate.
mm,
Later on, obviously, they both have their own perspectives, but at that, he'd come at him with, I think it was this argument, and he kind of just spur of the moment got him.
right.
I don't even think he knew,
Mm,
because I think he assumed he understood Arabic, but he just
mm,
asked him, and he's like, so you don't? Oh, wait a
yeah.
minute. So,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, this is, you see, the message, the connection that we have at the heart of religion
Mm,
is it's truly, it is the sacred,
mm,
and it is insan's kind of this yearning that we have, that we are drawn to the sacred.
mm,
There is a kind of inner devotion that seeks it out,
mm,
and we're perplexed with it, and we're kind of terrified by it
mm,
at the same time. This
yeah.
mysterium tremendum et fascinans.
Mm,
It terrifies, but it also fascinates,
right.
beyond measure.
Right.
This we have, and I feel that is our, like moths to a flame,
Mm,
symbolically, that we are drawn to the divine.
mm,
And we say Allah Jalla Jalaluhu,
mm,
this kind of almost like this terrifying glory,
yeah.
but at the same time, this unimaginable love that
Yeah.
Allah has.
Exactly.
So yeah, there is, we're I I find myself, honestly, man, like I'm learning.
Mm,
You said you were learning, and I'm saying this as well, not trying to be humble, but
mm,
I was just pondering over at the beginning of this year over how last year has been,
mm,
and I try to think about all the great things,
mm,
and I try to think about, and I think everybody should, and and you might not. There might be obvious things like maybe materialistic gains or
mm,
obvious, things, but there's things we're not sometimes considering. And I was
yeah.
thinking more about that, actually, about how my consciousness has been altered, how
Mm,
I felt this kind of more of a healing. I felt this spirituality, and I
mm,
was just thinking about all these things, and how that spirituality, it's
mm,
akin to a kind of, I don't know, it's like a wisdom. It's like a maturity of thought. But I don't want to say wisdom, because wisdom is like, oh, you're like
mm,
wise, but it's not about wise, but it's the same thing, but you just understand it with a bit
mm,
more, there's a
yeah.
bit more of a grounding to
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
we're all on this journey, and may Allah bless
Religion
you
is a
for us
journey.
all, man. It is
Religion,
absolutely.
all religion is a journey, man.
Absolutely. And wow. And I'm
Yeah.
really glad you had this conversation with me. And this, we've got to do a mind trap. Let's get you on a
Inshallah,
mind trap and have
inshallah.
a discussion. This has been a kind of like a mini mind trap. I've loved it. The conversation has flowed, and it's been absolutely a
Mostly,
beautiful kind of like discourse.
I'm really elated to finally get hold of you. Until next year, of course, we'll see again. But
No, you know what? You
I'll cherish
you
this
dr-
moment.
you know you drop me a message on Instagram,
All right.
and just drop me a
I
message
have
of
actually. I don't know if do you remember a baby boy who was laughing at you on television when you kept on going Daif, Daif.
okay. Right.
Well, that was my
I don't
son.
recall.
I sent him to you.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay. You know what? Send me a message again,
Right,
and what I'll do is I'll send you my number. We'll stay
right.
connected, inshallah.
Okay, do you mind just one short question
Sure, go for it. Go for it. Since
pertaining to
we've
also
covered all these wonderful topics,
contemporary
go for
issues
it.
again? When it comes to hair extensions, wigs, or fake eyelashes, how do because I heard you say that it is permissible, but then how do we reconcile that when scholars have actually authenticated hadiths, cursing the Musadat and
Um,
Mustawsadat, and that Bani Israel used to be cursed because they put on hair extensions and so
yeah.
on.
Yeah, that's a good one actually, because right. So there is this hadith, very famous hadith
Mm,
of in Bukhari, that la'ana Allahul,
mm,
and it goes through a whole thing, a whole
mm,
collection of al-wasilat, wal-mustawsilat, wal-washimat, wal-mutawashimat,
mm,
and it mentions all these women who pluck hair, and
mm,
women who do tattooing, and women who do the tattooing, who receive the tattooing, women who remove the hair for other women,
mm,
those women who have their hair removed, mutafallijat, those women who straighten their teeth, they
yeah.
have their teeth kind of straightened, and
Mm,
those women who straighten it for them, and those women who extend the hair, and those women who extend it for them. And so this is a really interesting hadith, because right at its and because what is it speaking about
mm,
now? Some people, so first of all, even in its wording, la'an Allahu, so some people say that the prophet is saying Allah has cursed these women. Another explanation is no, that I think it's Ibn Umar, is
mm,
saying that the prophet cursed them by saying la'an Allah.
mm.
Like when you curse someone,
Ah,
like I
okay.
say, la'anak Allah.
Mm,
It's a like it's I'm saying it, expressing it as like
mm,
God damn you, like
mm,
that. So it's not the statement that God has damned, like la'an Allah. It's not a khabri statement.
mm,
This is an insha'i, jumla insha'iyya. It's an
mm,
imperative. Like I'm saying, God, may
mm,
God damn you, like that.
mm,
Like I'm expressing, just as in certain ahadith, the Prophet
mm,
has said certain statements. So that's the first. That's an interesting discussion on this
mm.
hadith. Now,
Where can I find this discussion?
so I'm pretty sure Ibn Hajar mentions it in his
Okay.
discussion.
All right.
But
All right.
if you just type in this hadith on Google
Sure.
and you look for the commentaries on it,
Yeah.
that is this, and if you type in, I'm just thinking that هل هو دعاء عليهم or
Mm.
عليهن,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
or هل
Yeah.
هو, or even that might bring it up, or even if
Sure.
you say this jumla, is it
Insha'iyya
khabariya or
or
insha'iyya,
khabariyya. Yes.
that should bring
Yes.
it up
All right.
as well,
Yeah.
hopefully. So right now, okay, so that's a intriguing point, but the
Mm,
next layer is, okay, how do we treat this? Okay, so here it gets interesting, because the some scholars will say that this is categorically haram for every single woman. So let's
mm,
put them on this side, and you might get from them the Salafiyah, you might get today, maybe you get some of the Hanafiya in there
mm,
as well.
mm,
They say this is haram on every single woman, all of these actions.
mm,
Then you'll get some scholars that will say no, like Ibn al-Jawzi, for
mm,
example, not
mm,
Ibn al-Qayyim, but Ibn al-Jawzi in his Ahkam al-Nisa.
mm,
He will say that no, the Prophet ﷺ was cursing a particular women that he describes. They were certain women that were on the outskirts of Medina that were prostitutes, and they were and he was upset with what they were doing, and this was a curse. This was the characteristics of them. It's like as if I said, like imagine we're speaking about Wall Street bankers because of what they've done. And I said, God damn these men who just sit in suits, drinking coffee with newspapers open all day. And it's not really me saying, God damn these men who just sit in suits. But really, we had in mind these Wall Street bankers who have, done something, let's say with certain hedge funds and done certain things. So they're seeing this as descriptive. So that's Ibn Jawzi and a few other people. They say this is just with certain those women. It's not about women in general. Then you get this continuum, this move along this spectrum. So you will get, so for example, these people saying categorically it's haram for all women always. Some people will say, well, right, okay, it's haram, but some things are exempt from that. So, for example, women removing facial hair, because the hadith says women cannot remove facial hair. But several of the madhabs, Malikiya will say, of course, women can remove facial hair. The Shafi'iyya will say, yes, they can remove facial hair. The Hanafiya, even in Imam Muhammad in his Kitab al-Athar, brings a riwayah from Aisha saying that, remove whatever doesn't look that, kind of looks a bit off. But keeping in mind that the Arabs back then were not excessively hairy. They were not a very hairy people. So different cultures can be very hairy. So saying that when Aisha is saying, she can straighten up hair around her face and stuff, if she has hair, but that's because many women they weren't excessively, like you might find South Asian women can sometimes be, let's say, shall we say, blessed with more of that. So they may need to exercise that a lot more. Now, okay, so some people, they make that exception. Another exception, so people, and the Malikiya speak about this, by the way. So the Malikiya say, and I'll tell you in the Maliki fiqh books, they say that women can remove facial hair. There's no issue with that. They say women can, and they even, some of them allow the tattooing, because some of the Berber women used to do tattoos and stuff. So you'll find Dardir discusses this in his commentary on Bukhari. You'll find in the Suqi covers this in his commentary on sorry, did I say Bukhari? In Mukhtasar Khalil, on his commentary on Mukhtasar Khalil. So they say, what about this hadith? So they say, yes, this hadith is speaking about women when they're in their iddah. So a woman whose husband has died, or if she's just, she's been in a very tumultuous relationship, just had a divorce, she should, for a certain period, a grace period, if the husband has died, she's in a state of mourning, and some people extend it to the divorcee as well, she should be in a state of ihdad. Ihdad is not kind of just glamorizing herself and doing things, and because it's going to cause hurt to the family of the deceased. So, if somebody's, they've lost a son or a brother or somebody, and next day his wife's all, done up and she's all this, and it may cause, even though she's in her personal right, but you see, these things could cause social disease. Like people could be like, what the hell's wrong with her? Husband hasn't, his body's not even cold yet, and she's all of a sudden all, like these things, and people, and the emotions are high, and so just keeping it, the Sharia is all about just wisdom and welfare. So look, it says, look, just keep it cool for, whether scholars disagree whether it's 1 month or 3 months, or for the dead person 4 months 10 days, like it has this period. Look, just, it's okay. People are in a state of mourning. The Malikiya say, so Dardir and the Suqi, and people can check this up, that they say that, look, this hadith here, that this, especially when they're speaking about plucking the hair, they say the plucking the hair is speaking about the woman fil idda, al-mu'tadda, not about general women. So they restrict it to that.
Mm.
Some Malikiya include tattooing, the washimat, and they say the Berber women had this
Mm.
as part of their culture, and it
Right.
was not
Right. Yes.
necessarily haram. And Qarafi
Mm.
has a discussion in his Dakhira.
Mm.
And Qadi Iyad, in his commentary on Sahih Muslim on the same hadith, he has the discussion of what about women having extensions with strings.
Mm.
So they tie strings into their hair to kind of bulk it.
Mm.
And this was in 900 years ago, of course.
Yeah.
So he says, well, that's not haram. That's not included. That's fine. So what he's saying is this hadith is more to do with misleading someone.
Mm.
So if the misleading was very clear, then it would be haram.
Mm.
So if this hadith, they say that if you were meeting someone, let's say you're meeting to get married or you're meeting to do something,
Ah, yeah.
and you've got a bunch of fake things on,
Mm.
like you're misleading them with what the quality of your hair, you're misleading them with, and they think, oh, this is such a beautiful person. Wow. Now you could say, well, they're shallow, but still you're misleading them.
Mm.
And they said that this applies to misleading, which today, mind you, a lot of people with the amount of makeup that you see, it is very misleading.
Does this also entail human hair? Because some
So
scholars did make a distinction whether you are using horse hair or human hair.
yes,
Even those,
so
yeah.
so
Mm.
that's the same extension that Qadi Iyad is saying with those people that are using strings
Mm.
to add on. So for example, South Asian women, now I don't know whether they do it, but when we were kids, like my mum's generation used to do it, they used to have this thing which we used to call a paranda, but they
Mm.
would tie it into their hair. It was just made out of strings and stuff, but it had this bulk to it, but it would tie into tie into the plait of the hair, and it would give it this, I guess, a bulkier, more presence.
Yeah.
Now, but everybody knew what it was.
Mm.
So I don't think people in Pakistan, where they, even though they're very harsh against these things, would see that as haram.
Mm.
Although technically it would be part of the hadith that they are adding something to their
Mm.
hair.
Mm.
And in that discussion, you're right. Some say, well, is it just human hair? Some say, is it cloth, strings? Some say, is it animal hair? All of these things would come into it.
Okay.
And the point would be, is this to mislead someone or not? And if it wasn't to mislead, is it so you've got some people categorically haram. And another interesting point is today, you see, technically by that hadith, having braces ought to be haram.
Right.
Which today nobody would consider braces or straightening your teeth to be haram. But according to this, when they straighten the teeth, sometimes they may, even dentists today, they may kind of level some of the teeth. Like they kind of like use I don't know what it is, like a grinder or something, and they may level out some of the teeth, or if something is a bit too sharp, they level it. That's what it was, what the women were doing then. They had these files, and they filed the teeth. So that's what the hadith says. So today, nobody considers dental braces haram. So it's interesting, really, this hadith on its true literal wording, nobody is adhering to the whole hadith today. Literally, some people are adhering to most of it. Some people say, no, this hadith only applied to certain bad character women of the Prophet's time, and it was referring to women who were imitating them, not just the characteristic per se. Yes. That's just an arbitrary. And some people say, well, no, it's referring to women who are in a state of iddah. They shouldn't be doing these things, otherwise they can do them.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, no, this is to do with, deceiving. If you're deceived, like I remember there was this case, right, where this person spoke to me once, this is years ago, and he was explaining that his wife wanted a divorce. And she, when they got married, and it was after the wedding night or whatever, together, maybe on the second night or something. And at this point, I didn't know what this was. He said, because he said to me, Mufti, I have a hair system. And I didn't know what a hair system was. So I said, what's a hair system? And so it's this kind of like, almost like a semi-permanent wig. which they kind of glue onto their hair. So they're obviously bald, so they shave it off and they glue it on like John Travolta has it.
Yeah.
So if you pull it and if you jump into a swimming pool, whatever, it doesn't come off. It looks like actual hair. So he said, I don't know, on the second or third day or whatever it was, he took off this hair system and I don't know, he must have been time to take it off. Takes it off and puts it down on the bedside drawer. She freaks the hell out. She's like, what the hell is that? And then he's sitting there, this bold guy.
Yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with being bold, but it's just the shock of it. It's like, and she wanted a divorce.
Oh
And this guy was obviously shocked, and he was saying, well, she's wrong. But right or wrong aside, you've got to understand the shock system of doing something like that. You can't just take your whole hair off and the other person doesn't know and just put it down. And it's like, what the hell? Buyer's remorse. Just like, so that's, mind you, I'd seen a clip of, it was some, I don't know, I think it's like a Chinese woman or something. But in the clip, it goes to show like from before to after with makeup. And it's just...
I saw that. I've seen that clip as well. Yeah.
Wow. Like, you're like, oh my God. It's like, I mean, I'm not trying to diss her or anything, but God damn, where she starts from is like, it's like from the realm of goblins. And she ends up looking like some kind of a model.
Yeah.
And it's just, wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. All that's artificial. And she just takes it off and takes off this almost artificial skin and everything. Right. She's like, what? Yes. So that would categorically be haram in deceiving someone like that. So I think that's a wide way of looking at how people have interpreted this hadith. Like, first of all, coming at it by saying, was this a description where the Prophet is explaining, oh, by the way, Allah has cursed these people, so it's a statement? Or was it an exclamation where the Prophet was upset at something, said, God, make God curse these people? Because that too changes the trajectory.
Right.
Because, one is incidental and one is a very descriptive kind of imperative. So the other, so in this, and then people have disagreed from where today nobody, or I don't know, I could be wrong. I don't think even the Salafi ulama disagree that people can have braces. I don't think they disagree, unless some of them disagree. So nobody takes the entire hadith literally, but some people take most of it literally. And some people say, well, no, it's, no, none of it, it's only applies to those women that like that. And some people saying, well, no, if it's for deception. And some people saying, well, make the exception, it's only for iddah, and so on. And so we've got this diversity. And and people can have their pick. People could say, well, I take it literally. More power to you. Don't do it then. If a guy says to me, I don't, I take this fully literally, 100%, I would say, well, don't extend your hair then, and don't do these things. Don't wear hair extensions, and don't, but we have to be wary on imposing our interpretation on other people.
Of course.
Because they've got, they're on their journey. There's ulama that say that they were ulama of Islam as well. Ibn al-Jawzi is not a small alim. He's a huge scholar of Islam, and he's not a modernist. He's not a liberalist kind of person. He's somebody that's back then explaining, no, this is what the hadith is. Dasuqi and Dardir and these people are great scholars. They weren't just, when they're saying it's in a iddah, they're not, just people trying to appease modernity. So just respect for all and practice yourself what you're comfortable with.
Oh, but trust me, I've learned that the hard way. Mufti, I truly appreciate this moment.
It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed, honestly, this conversation, and it's been quite it's quite colorful, and we've covered quite a lot. It's been good conversation.
And thank you for the poem, by the way. I always enjoy the poems that you drop. Every time you drop a poem, I quickly get on my Arabic keyboard and then type in the few sentences that you recite, and then go into. I don't know if you know at diwan.net.
Okay, I have used it quite a bit.
Yeah, that's where I find all the then I find, oh, okay, that's where he got it from, and then I quickly write about it. But seriously, I
I
love
love it.
poetry. Poetry
Oh,
is
shukran, man. Me
fantastic.
too, man. It's so,
Yeah,
honestly, it's something I found that even on, on a on on a damp, on a day where the soul is feeling damp,
yeah,
it's kind of like
yeah,
it can enliven you and
yeah,
just breathe
yeah,
energy into you. Yeah, it's
yeah,
something
yeah,
I found myself sometimes, even if I found myself down and
mm,
I've read a poem, I uncontrollably will end up laughing at it, and just
yeah, yeah,
out of joy,
yeah,
and
yeah.
just,
Well,
yeah.
may Allah keep
But
you in joy.
shukran, likewise, man.
And
Allah bless you, Ishaq, and we will
all
stay
right.
in touch. Drop me a
Yeah, we'll
message,
stay in touch. I'll
and
drop one
and
in Instagram.
you take care of yourself,
All
and
right.
we'll speak
Good
soon.
night. See you.
Assalamu alaikum. People, that was Ishaq from Copenhagen. Wow. All right. What a discussion. Honestly, I really enjoyed that. So pleasant. It is true that, just good conversation, it is such a blessing from Allah. Wow. Yeah. Guys, you know what? We've gone on for quite a bit. I will have to wrap this up. I see Lucy had been waiting for quite a while. You know what? Shall we just, Lucy, if you're still there, go on. You've been waiting patiently. Let's bring you on. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Just as well you got Ishaq on before me, because I needed to check up on my dad. He has loads of
Oh,
accidents.
is he okay?
Yeah, he's okay now. It's just part
Okay.
of his condition. At first it's like, oh, I feel sorry for you and stuff, but really I'm used to it by now.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that does happen. It's the human nature to become desensitized, and but it doesn't by any way subtract from the
Mm.
magnificent kind of task it is that you're undertaking, even if it becomes somewhat irritable at times by its very nature. I'm sure these things. This is why I have so much respect for people like nurses, and because they just embody patience. And yeah, that's a different discussion for another day, how undervalued they are in this country. May
Nurse
God
strikes.
strike some sense into those bloody greedy politicians.
Yeah, going around on
Yeah,
Twitter, there was an interesting story where a Holocaust survivor calls out Suella Braverman, who apparently I'm unable to verify this completely, but compared refugees to cockroaches, and the Holocaust survivor was calling her out, saying, "How dare you do this?" Like
yeah,
and was reminded of how she came to this country as the Holocaust survivor was reminded
yeah,
of how she came to this country as a refugee. And it also reminds me of one of my jokes, like Priti Patel were not, this is one of the previous home secretaries came
yeah,
to this country, her parents came to this country as refugees.
yeah.
So
It's
because there
crazy.
was so
And
it's just like,
I find that, not to kind of just be derailed with this discussion, but I find that, with the Tories, there's just a lot of this, like what they use is just the brown faces, and then so they can just get away with what is in essence racist propaganda, because hey, it's a brown face, so they can't be racist. So they get these kind of obnoxious people like Priti
yeah.
Patel, these people who totally do not identify with people from their ethnic community. They come on, like let's be honest. Like Rishi Sunak is from the 1%.
Yeah.
He's like incredibly privileged. He's multi-million. He's the richest politician in the entire United Kingdom. There's you can't. He's not going to identify with Abdul. That's like
Yeah,
living.
I'm
Yeah.
privately educated for senior school at senior school level, and
Rather, I
I
like it.
regard Rishi Sunak as being way more privileged than me, considering like
Of
he
course,
went to a top-notch one,
no, he is
I went
incredibly
to
privileged.
I
Well,
went to a a kind of medium one, or
wow.
maybe
See,
to the
still
low
went to.
end.
I like it. This is why you're a programmer today. You see, you've got your ball bearings all in the right place. You know what you're doing in life. I like it. See, this is what
And
private education does.
I think like private education did help me be more articulate, but also
Yeah.
sometimes people sometimes there's some people who prefer it, because I went to a girls only school, and it tends to be that females that go to girls only schools tend to be a bit more confident, and also we can be a little bit curious about boys, which can be a bit naughty.
You naughty. You see, this is the thing that people think. I mean, the results usually show that girls only schools perform. They usually are top of the league when they outperform mixed schools and also boys only schools. So girls only will outperform all the other schools when it comes to academic ability. So girls are usually far brighter when they're just left to themselves. What they found is boys only perform the worst, but boys seem to perform better in the presence of girls. So they kind of drag the girls down a bit, and the girls kind of raise the boys a bit by. So it's that's what the kind of academic charts show. So that's interesting. But yeah, you're right. And people sometimes think that there's less. If I send my child to a single gendered school, then it's going single sex school, then they're going to be, I don't know, less curious, and they're going to be, and actually it can be the opposite.
I know, like in senior school, loads of girls would ask me loads of nosy questions about the opposite gender, like silly, like overly intervening in-laws, and so, it just would make me blush. I would get a bit angry at the girl.
You'd become the guru. When you
I was quite prudish for the girls there, because they were just being extra curious because there weren't boys around, whereas I know, like, if boys were around, they would probably have behaved themselves and not asked such awkward questions.
It is interesting that how the opposites that they bring. So girls, Jordan Peterson says this as well, and it is quite evident that girls or women or girls, they make men or boys more self-conscious. So he has this argument that girls are already, they have a heightened self-consciousness than boys do, but boys in the presence of girls become more self-conscious. And it is true that you see men or boys, when there are girls or women in their lives, they start to take care of themselves more often. Otherwise, like, a guy could just be a bum in a place. He doesn't care, just be. And the moment a woman is in his life, he will pay that much more attention to himself, or a certain more, even if it's not, but it will be slightly heightened, if not. And so that's fascinating, and yeah, that's a fascinating discussion.
And one of somebody I knew who went to sixth form. Not that we went to the same sixth form, but yeah, I knew her from one of the Muslim communities around nearby. She said, like, sometimes girls that went to only girls' schools for secondary school, they would act like Princess Anna from Frozen, where she sings for the first time in forever, because they shut off from boys, so they get extra curious and misbehave.
But yeah, okay. I was going to just add in there, just the same thing with madrasas, as in these countries. So people think that, I'm not saying this is with every child that goes to a madrasa, but I'm just saying that don't be surprised that people think that if they send their child to an Islamic only school, which is quite, if I can use the word, like almost sheltered off from the rest of the world, so it's cut off, that they will somehow grow up to be less curious. And they find the opposite being true, that they are actually sometimes far more adventurous, shall we say, in the pursuit of certain curiosities than regular kids who just go to regular mixed schools. And I was speaking to someone a few months ago, and he was very, he got talking to me at the gym, actually, and he was quite upset and he was telling me about his daughter, and I said, well, what's the problem? And he said, well, she's been up to all, certain kind of things, and she's a teenager, and And I said, well, and he said, no, but she goes to madrasa. I've sent to madrasa only. And, what the hell, she's been, she's kind of, she's managed to connivingly come up with obviously strategies to do things and I said, but I was kind of, and he was kind of doubling down with all this harshness. And I said to him, look, this is the problem. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you see, you are coming from a place of love, but you're manifesting as though you're coming from a place of hate towards this child.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
your actions are like you want to punish so harshly, and you want to do all these things to this child who but you're coming from a place of love. The person can't see any love. Like, I can't see,
Yeah.
like, if you're in your mind, you just want to beat me up, or even if you don't want to beat me up, you want to lock me in and deprive me of, let's say, any kind of gadgets and keep me, like, I can't see love in that. I can
Mm-hmm.
just see you torturing me. So I'm going to hate you even more. I'm going to rebel harder. I'm going to, okay, maybe I don't rebel now. And then he told me that, oh, well, this incident happened actually, in that particular incident with his own sibling as they were growing up. He said his sibling, as soon as she reached an age of college, had escaped from home and ran away from home, and then went through this whole unfortunate journey as well. But I said, well, that's exactly the thing, you see. But, well, if you try to, it's like pressure. Okay, maybe you keep a lid on it now, but what about when they turn 18? Then,
Also,
yeah,
I've heard stories of some females in older generations than myself. They just married to get out of their parents' house, and then
yeah,
I've heard, like, in some instances it's caused the marriage to be rocky. It's meant that they've lacked financial stability and other things, and also it's meant, like, some of the women would just, I heard, like, they would just divorce their husbands within 6 months or so because they weren't too keen on the marriage working. They were just
yeah,
keen on escaping their tyrannical parents, which
yeah.
I'm thinking is
I've
not the right reason to get
That's such a
married.
shame, man. And it's become, you see, this needs to be a conversation that needs to be had, because it's become a rite of passage that you see for in many Muslim communities. I can say definitely within the Pakistani community, it's become almost a rite of passage that if you are a girl and you wish to live independently,
Mm-hmm.
like, you must be a divorcee then. So, like, because, like, you must be, like, so, like, let me play that back differently. Let's say there's two daughters living at home with the parents. Let's say they've just got 1 year difference between them in age, so they're very similar.
Yeah.
Now, let's say they say, oh, Dad, I'd like to live alone. And I can understand the concerns. Don't get me wrong. I'm a father, and although my daughter's very young and I wish that they could forever just stay young, I am also equally petrified of the thought that, God damn, they're going to grow up. Right. So, but I'm just saying, this is a very real question now, because let's say they both say to the parents, I want to live, I want to buy a place and live there. Let's say. Now, I understand the response is going to be, this is the response, no, never, you're never doing that. Now, okay, let's say one girl, let's say the elder one, let's say they're 25, let's say one is 25, one's 24, let's say, hypothetically. So the 25-year-old gets married. Okay, she gets married. Let's say she gets divorced 3 months, 6 months, 3 months down the road, she gets divorced. 6 months down the road, she gets divorced. She comes home. Okay, she says, let's say it's his fault. He's horrible. He's a tyrant, whatever. Okay, she comes home. But they obviously, in this country, most people are working. They're doing things. They've got their lives. So now she's come back home after she's moved out. So now that she's come home, let's say by the end of that year, she says, oh, by the way, I found a place. I'm going to move there. Now the parents will allow that. They will
Mm-hmm.
allow that. And so you see, now let's read that differently. So because she's divorced, she's allowed to live independently. It's like she's been through this rite of passage to say, well, now, the other one, let's say the other one says it at the same time. Oh, I'd like to live alone. They'd be like, have you lost the plot? Are you feeling okay? You can't live alone. So if you interpret it differently, it's coming back to what you're saying, that people are understanding that, right, to escape home, I need to just get married. Some people are understanding this. And even if the marriage doesn't work out, it doesn't matter, because I will then be treated as an independent adult who can just live independently.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, it's very unfortunate. I mean, I'm not, look, once again, I'm just here with everybody else, just trying to figure out the problems. I'm not saying I've got some solution. I'm just saying these are conversations that need to be had.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, my lips are a bit sore in case you noticed me rubbing them, but yeah, anyway.
No.
Okay.
So
yeah, but yeah, it's just like sometimes women, like it's important for women to be in the medical profession. Sometimes nurses need to travel abroad even to train for their job.
Women must participate in society. You know, I'd have to go find the book, so I can't do it right now. But it's a fascinating discussion by Ibn Rushd, the Maliki Muslim philosopher, in his commentary on Plato's Republic. So it's in print. He has it. Is it called the Talkhis of something, right? But I've got it here. But he has his. He's basically got Plato's Republic, and he's doing a brief commentary on it. But there's a point where he discusses society, and Ibn Rushd then says, and this is this is about 800 years ago, he says it's a shame that in our culture women are just left to only have children and take care of the home. He's saying then that, he says, our society is only half functioning. He says, if we had women participating in everything, look how far we would get. This is 800 years ago, a Maliki scholar, the author of Bidayat al-Mujtahid, saying this. So today, of course, women should, a woman must be independent, just as independent as, and if she chooses later on if she says, look, when I get married, I want to stay at home, but that's up to her. But she can, for leisure, pursue things. She can still pursue work for fun. She can pursue it as a hobby. She can pursue a part-time work. She can set up a company just part-time, leisurely. If a woman is a woman of leisure, and she says, look, well, you see, because this is something, honestly, I say this so often. I have Zozo, my Zara, repeat this. She repeats it now. I say that you'd rather have something and not need it than need it and not have it. And
yeah.
And she says that. She repeats it back to me so many occasions when I'm saying something. She'll be like, rather have something and not need it than need it and not have it. Because that's what about skills in life. You'd rather have a skill set and not need it than need it and not have it. So
and also it's what am I thinking? It's important for sometimes males and females to balance each other out. I saw that comment.
Liberal. Cello, if I am, then look here, there you go. Off you go.
Right, you blocked them.
There you go. Simple. I don't have time for negative energy. It's just like that. It's like I respect people are entitled to their opinion. They don't need to respect me. But let's just be honest. If people come off, they try to throw off negative energy, and this is, I say this to people as well. If you have people who are in any way negative, whether it's on social media to you, whether it's even if they're just passive aggressively negative, you don't need it. Like, you are volunteering to be a part of that. Just block him. Just carry on. Just stay with positive energy only.
And I was discussing stuff in the chat earlier about Iblis and stuff, Billah. And I've got this book. I'm just zooming in for you.
Okay.
I'm trying to see whether you can see the title. Irish Text Society. You might not.
Okay, sure. Okay, no.
Irish Texts Society. And it has a very different version of the Genesis story, or the beginning story of from the Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and it's just like this version of two versions of Genesis in this book are very different than the version that we'd find in the modern day Bible.
Yeah. Okay. What does it say? What's the key that it's saying that? Because you began the point by saying about Iblis.
Yeah. Okay. It talks about in one of these chapters. I'm just turning through the book, that Iblis was jealous of Adam alayhi salam. And it also says, agreeing with the Islamic tradition, that Adam alayhi salam was created on Friday.
Okay. I see.
On Yawm al-Jum'ah. And yeah, I'm just trying to find where it says, and also it does agree with other. I read in the commentary on this book that the book agrees with various other sources found in Judeo-Christian sources, which probably indicate, and I am aware, like it's common knowledge that Christianity, or the religion of Isa alayhi salam and Musa alayhi salam, reached Ireland independently of the Roman Empire. So that's why this book is very different. And yeah, I'm going through it just to
that is very interesting. Well, too, that's shukran for sharing that. And as a side note, there are some interesting discussions on the evolution of Satan throughout the traditions, because you're right, in Genesis, or in the Jewish Bible, there is hardly any mention of Satan, and he's not it doesn't say the Garden of Eden story refers to a serpent, a snake.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that the snake is Satan. That's in the New Testament. Jesus makes a reference to that. But otherwise, I think in the Old Testament, Satan is a term for like an obstacle in the classical Jewish tradition. And also, I think in the story of Job, there is this. It also appears, but as this kind of obstacle of in his path to stuff. But yeah, that is a very fascinating discussion. I would love to maybe get somebody on that, and maybe have a mind trap someday. If I can get somebody quite, learned in that, or that's researching that field, it'd make for a fruitful discussion. Yeah. Well, Lucy,
and there was.
Okay. I was going to wrap up, but okay. Would you?
Okay.
What were you about to say?
Evidence of Christianity, or the original religion of Isa alayhi salam, reaching Britain and Ireland independently of the Roman Empire, is that in Wales, this was probably slightly after the collapse of the Roman Empire, there was a Roman Catholic Bishop Eldham, who went to Wales, and he noticed that there were Christians there who observed Jewish practices, and that freaked him out. And the Welsh Christians ostracized him for refusing to engage in kashrut, that's kosher. They refused to enter Catholic churches. They got people to do like a 40-day penance before.
They were Jewish community they
believed in Jesus, though, but it's not like what's called Messianic Judaism today. They're two completely separate entities. But
they arrived at what time scale are you putting them at? What was the?
I think like they arrived via Ireland, like that's my understanding, or certainly arrived via the trade routes via Spain. And Spain has a strong Spanish DNA, has about a 25% Jewish DNA in Spanish blood, so maybe even higher. So it's just like
I meant, is this like, are you saying this is shortly after Jesus, or no, or this is, or much after?
This is sometime after Jesus, but before the time of Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, peace be upon him, there were people migrating between Spain, Ireland, and Wales area, or across trade routes.
So this is before Jesus.
Yes,
people had. Oh, right. Okay. Wow. Okay.
but
So there was like a Jewish
also,
tradition that had independently arrived in island Wales that was pre-Jesus, even from that kind of
yeah.
time. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the story
Okay.
goes that when the Malaysians, according to the Irish texts, as I might need to buy a few more volumes of this to explain in greater detail, it's reckoned. Okay, a question is saying, is Lucy talking about the Ebionites? It's very, as a lot of the Celts did not have loads of written records. It's unknown as to what they did and didn't believe, because they were subsequently conquered by the Normans. This is centuries much later, and because of being conquered by the Normans, they were forcefully converted to Roman Catholicism.
Yeah.
And it's well known that they had a different kind of way of celebrating Easter. It was more in line with the Jewish tradition. And yeah,
Wow.
I
Okay,
don't know what.
this is real. This is really fascinating. I mean, you know what? I'm going to look into some of this as well. It's very intriguing, and yeah, it'd be good to get a whole discussion on this at some point. That would be very.
Yeah, I think like the Irish Text Society and the Labor Gabala Erin. I might be butchering the name, as I am not a Gaelic speaker
Sure.
myself, but yeah,
Okay.
there's
You speak Welsh though.
Dwi'n siarad tipyn bach.
Wow, look at that. Wow. See, who would have thought? Look at that.
I'm not a
There's
fluent Welsh speaker, but my
there was a kha. I heard the kha there.
okay.
Bach.
Can you say Llangollen in Welsh with the ll?
So what do I say? Thank?
Okay, to say the ll, it's like a
Thla.
combination letter.
Thla.
Yeah, as in Llangollen.
Llangollen. What is,
Yeah, you nailed it.
did I? Okay, Llangollen. People, what does that mean?
Oh,
Did I
okay.
just swear?
No, you didn't swear. It's a place name in Wales. It's just south
Oh,
of
wow.
Wrexham.
Oh, right. Okay. Llangollen. All right, people, you're doing it out there. Right. Okay. You know what, Lucy, we got to wrap this up. Shukran, I really appreciate that all, and look forward to much more learning, much more Welsh in the future, and many more insights.
Yeah, it's
It's
possible to learn Welsh on AI Glossica. I think AI Glossica. I don't know what the end part of the domain is. It's possibly .com, but
okay.
that offers a free Welsh course, and it has people learn via sentence mining rather than just being shoved a load of vocab. So it is there, and also it's
Oh,
possible to learn it on Duolingo and other places.
look at that. Our Welsh representative right there. Shukran, Lucy Jones, for sharing your thoughts with us today. Allah keep you blessed, and we will
Amy,
catch
you
up
too.
soon.
Yeah, thank
Assalamu
you.
alaikum. People, that was Lucy Wynne Jones sharing some amazing insights and sharing some Welsh. Other than that, people, we have now gone way over the scheduled time. So have a great evening wherever you are. May Allah bless your day. Ameen. And grant you abundance more and more. Ameen. Of goodness, though, of goodness. People, if you haven't already, do spread the stream, like it, leave a comment. You know, if there's some thoughts, it's nice. I do try to read some of the comments. It's good. So if you want to reach out to me, Instagram, drop me a message. And yeah, you're more than welcome. If you want a one-to-one consultation, you can go to patreon.com/MALM, and you can book a one-to-one. That's tier 2. Okay. Other than that, you can also subscribe to the other tiers, which include my Discord server. Yeah. Discord. Mindscape, man. Mindscape. People, salamullahi alaikum wa khuda hafiz.